I've heard the bells. That means it's 7. That's when the Acton Select Board starts meeting. We need a quorum here, which is 3, but all 5 of us are here. So we are totally authorized to call this meeting to order. The first part of the meeting is hearing from residents about their concerns. It's a really important part of the meeting. Even though we're 5 people, that's not as many as there are people in Acton. So we need you to understand, what you're thinking out there. Because we have a busy agenda as usual, we're going to do the usual thing of limiting comments to 3 minutes. Dean has a yellow piece of paper that he flies when you get up to 2 minutes and a red piece of paper when you get to 3 minutes. If you want us to follow up on what you're saying, like get back to you about something, be good to mention that, and then I'll make sure to make note of that so we can get back to you. Sometimes people just want to make sure their opinions are heard, and that's totally fine too. With that being said, are there any resident concerns? Come on up to the microphone. Great. Handouts too. And why don't you go ahead and tell us your name and...
Yep, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for giving us the time to speak. My name is James Walter. I am an Acton resident here. I'm also the board chair for the Infant Toddler Center in Acton. I wanted to take some time to speak with you and to address some concerns and definitely ask for a follow-up from the board along with the town manager surrounding some concerns we have with some crosswalk safety. There's a crosswalk, as you see in the packet, that is outside of our parking lot that is used quite a bit by parents who walk their kids to work and our teachers who cross the street with the classrooms full of kids to walk over into the woods that are next to the cemetery right there. Numerous occasions, pretty much over the past year, there have been incidences where cars are not stopping for the kids. Cars are not stopping for the teachers who go out into the middle of the street and hold a stop sign, and they'll just keep driving right past them. It's become pretty scary for the kids, and so we'd like to implore you to do everything you can to come up with some solutions with us for ensuring the safety of the kids and the teachers and the parents who are looking to drop off their kids every day. We have a couple of solutions that we've listed within that packet. One is relocating the crosswalk. Where it is right now, it's kind of on a hill right on that street. So when people are coming up, they can't see that there's a crosswalk there. Or when they're coming across the train tracks, there's just too much brush. As you can see, the signs are completely covered by trees and by brush, so no one even knows. There's not even a signal there. So we asked that maybe we move the crosswalk to a more convenient location or a safe location. And we also ask that maybe we put up some speed. Like out here, there's the speed limit signs with the speed limit of which people are going. And finally, we ask, like in West Acton Center, there's the press the button to cross the street and it flashes the lights so kids can be seen. And finally, I don't know how we go about doing this, but we'd like to register as a safety zone. I know that child care centers can register as a safety zone, reducing the speed limit from 30 down to 20. Thank you so much for your time. I know I'm running out of minutes, so I really appreciate it. I would like to follow up with whomever I can to prioritizing this as best as we possibly can. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Hi, this is Tara from up on Mass Ave, and I will echo his concerns about West Acton. It's really become like a race course, and somebody I know was actually almost hit in a crosswalk at Mass Ave and Arlington Street. And we really appreciate the sting that was done by the police. But there were, as far as we were told, there were no tickets handed out, only warnings. And so thank you for, I like all the suggestions, thank you.
Are there resident concerns online? And how many people are online, David?
There are 11 people online, none with their hands raised.
Okay,
One with their hands raised.
okay. Okay, let's have you press the little red button there so we can hear you good.
that
Great,
good?
thanks.
Hi, my name is Brian Brady. I live on 353 Main, so everyone's probably familiar with the area. It's a little off the track of the dog park. It's more the housing. I have no issue with it being there whatsoever, but I'm worried, like our driveway. I think Kennedy actually used to own the property as well at one point. We have a real long driveway that curves, and I would almost rather have anyone that's willing to come to the property and get a better visualization of my concerns. One being is that with the elderly housing, I'm worried about there being more traffic on our driveway, either whether it be not knowing where they're going, curiosity, and I have elderly parents with dementia and Alzheimer's, so I'm very well versed on it. But I also have a lot of concerns of anybody getting hurt accidentally going down there. For us, even as residents, the last few years, as everyone knows, hasn't been much snow, but it's still been cold and icy. And even living there, we've gone like 3 miles an hour. The whole section of the driveway is all, it just drops like a cliff. And if anybody drives down there that doesn't know, I'm worried about a liability factor. And I want to make sure that I have no liability if something happens to somebody. That's the gist of it. Like I said, I would love for anyone to come and see a better idea. Like I said, I have no objections to the projects. We have a little dog. I'm actually kind of looking forward to the dog park personally. But that's pretty much it. And my phone number if anyone wants to reach out or if they can. It's
If you wanted to hand me something with your name and phone
Yeah.
number on it, and we'll
Awesome,
be sure to
that'd be
be in
great.
touch. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Hi, my name is Rob Hamilton, and I live on River Street. And this is almost more of a question, but I have communicated with Jim and Alyssa, because I know them well. I had my cat attacked on my front porch back in January, and the dog that attacked the cat is still being walked in my neighborhood. I learned from neighbors that the dog attacked another dog, a smaller dog, earlier last year. And I'm wondering what the process is for trying to get a muzzle and some restrictions, such as a short leash for the dog owner to use, because they're still using a long, uncontrollable leash and not wearing a muzzle. So I'd like a follow-up on how to proceed.
I'll make sure we get back to you, Rob.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
I think you said there was someone online. You wanted to say something?
Yes.
Okay. Matt, if there's someone online who's got their hand raised, let's make sure to hear from them.
Yes, Mr. Chair. This person is named as the Transportation Advisory Committee, but they should be able to clarify who exactly is speaking.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Rama.
Thank you. My name is Ramachandran Balakrishna. I'm the current chair of the Transportation Advisory Committee. I just wanted to support the first speaker who talked about the need to look into the safety at the crosswalk outside the infant school center. We've discussed this issue in the last 2 meetings, and we agree that it's definitely a situation that needs to be looked at. We've had at least one other resident in that neighborhood who actually attended the meeting and confirmed that speeding is a big issue on that stretch of street. So on behalf of TAC, just wanted to throw my support behind these concerns and hope that it gets escalated and gets the focus that it deserves. Thank you.
Thanks, Rama. Matt, is there anyone else with their hand raised online who wants to speak?
There is not, Mr. Chair.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. The next part of the meeting is called Chair Update and Town Manager Update and Members Minute. Let me take a look at my notes. I think I just had a couple things to say. Okay, first of all, Dean and I started talking about what's called either beating the bounds or perambulation. It's a law in the state of Massachusetts that select boards every 5 years send out a couple of their members to mark the monuments that mark our boundaries, either where they cross roads or where the boundary of the town turns. It's a law that's mostly not been observed. The state does have a right to fine us, $20 individually as select board members if we don't do it, but apparently no fines have gone out for, maybe a century or so. We stopped doing it, I don't know, I'm going to guess late 70s, early 80s. And we're talking about reviving it as a matter of civic pride and civic knowledge. Where are the corners in Acton? We think it'll be a nice project. The next time we're legally required to do this is 2025, so we have time to get ready. If there are those of you, either fellow select board members or people in the public who are interested in such a thing, let us know. I imagine we'll start with some, scouting trips, gather some information from the town about where these monuments are, make sure we know where they are so that by 2025 we're ready to visit them. Oh, and then also we get to spray paint them, the boundaries with the year. So you might have come across these boundary markers, and it looks like, when I first saw them, I thought, oh, geez, every 5 years, the graduating seniors decide to pull a prank by, spray painting the year on a marker. But no, it turns out that was just part of the legal process. And, we should have a chance to spray paint things too. So that was that part. The other part was, I was at the Transportation Advisory Committee meeting where our ITC reps came and talked about their situation. I agree it's not a tolerable situation right now. The town's been notified, the town staff has been notified, and they're beginning to bring together departments to, figure out the right steps. The police have already been engaged. And that's really helpful on an emergency basis to have the police involved. But obviously there's some long-term or not so long-term, some structural solutions that are also needed to be investigated. So you'll definitely be hearing from us on that. That's all I had. It could be that the town manager has an update.
May I yield my time to the assistant town manager?
That would be great. Let's hear from Tom.
Thank you very much. We're pleased to announce that beginning on April 1st, Acton Rides taxi service will have no monthly limitations on the number of rides a person can use. And this is thanks to a grant from the Massachusetts Development Finance Agency through the Economic Development Department, Transportation Department, and in partnership with the community slipping my mind right now, but a neighboring community as well. So if anybody would like to take advantage of that or learn more, we invite you to visit actonma.gov. The other item is we're pretty excited to announce that the municipal monthly will be sent around this month in a new format that we're using the town software, the town website to generate it. So when it comes, it'll look a lot different. It'll read more like a newspaper as well. And that should be coming to your inboxes pretty shortly here. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tom. Select board members, updates? Alyssa.
Thank you. Just wanted to let everybody know that the second office hours that David and I are holding jointly to talk to folks about the budget and the override, answer questions, will be this Saturday, April 6th from 9 a.m. until 11 a.m. And we decided to move it from Town Hall over to the Memorial Library since it's a Saturday and Town Hall is closed. So you can find us in the solarium, which is on the first floor just to the left of the front entrance. There will also be an override open forum at the Memorial Library on April 11th at 6:45, and some elected and appointed officials will be there to offer some information as well as take questions. If you can't make it in person, it will be live streamed on ActonTV and also recorded, so you can watch it later. The Acton Boxborough Cultural Council, our World Film Series is starting on April 26th, which is a Friday. So 4 consecutive Fridays, starting that date at 7 p.m. at the Sargent Memorial Library on Mass Ave in Boxborough. Those screenings are free. And lastly, I wanted to let everybody know that the Acton Minutemen will be doing their regular Patriots Day weekend events, and we won't be meeting before then. So just wanted to give a shout out to my favorite event, which is the Robbins Alarm Ride. That's a reenactment, and there are 4 stops. You can go to the actonminutemen.org website. They stop at the Robbins House, the Isaac Davis House, the Faulkner Homestead, and then Liberty Tree Farm. So it's a lot of fun because you get to see Colonel Faulkner come out in his nightgown and shoot his musket 3 times. A lot of people don't know that there were many, many alarm riders on that night, not just Paul.
Thanks. David?
Thank you. About a month ago, the Select Board transmitted to the Finance Committee the budget for next year. That's we're required to do that by the town charter. We had already reviewed the budget in 2 budget evenings about a month before that, so the Finance Committee was already pretty familiar. But I just wanted to let everybody know that in their meeting last week, the Finance Committee unanimously approved the budget that we transmitted. And if that's the A budget, as referred to the budget, the recommended budget with the override. Also, there are 11 people online.
Thanks, David. Fran? Okay. Dean?
Yeah, two items. Tomorrow night in this room at 7 o'clock, part of the Acton 250 speaker series of Dr. John Bell will be in talking about the road to Concord. It's part of our continuing program. I know we've got probably 75 people signed up already. You can sign up, you can just show up, or you can make reservations through the Acton Memorial Library website. The other thing from my liaison assignment with the Community Preservation Committee, there's been some information that's been circulated around stating that the Community Preservation Committee will be recommending purchase of a piece of property on Weatherby Street at this coming town meeting. That has not been brought before the Community Preservation Committee. We will not be making any recommendation on it. I expect such a purchase will probably be considered at some later point, but at least from the CPC's point of view, it will not be appearing at the May 6th town meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. The next agenda item is a public hearing. I get to read the following. Under MGL 140, Section 58, the Acton Select Board will hold a public hearing on April 1st, 2024 at 7:10 p.m. or 7:20 in the Francis Faulkner Hearing Room 204, Acton Town Hall, for a Class 1 auto dealer's license for MAG Retail Holdings ACJDR LLC, located at 1 Nagog Park, Acton, for internet sales only and storage of up to 100 vehicles. Let's kick this over to the proponents. Hey, look, they're all standing up and coming this way. That's so good. When you sit down, you can give us an overview of what you're thinking of. For those out in the audience, what we've been handed is a map of the 1 to 5 Nagog site with a special area of the parking lot highlighted in yellow. And now we're going to hear more about that.
Hi, my name is John Crandall. I'm with McGovern Automotive Group. With me is Troy Ward in Mutaz Musa, the general managers of the Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram on 196 Great Road and over at 61 Powder Mill Road, the Subaru dealership. We're looking at, it's going to be internet sales only as it's stated, indoor park. They work inside a closed office building. They do not meet with customers. They refer them all to the dealership. The storage of vehicles is part of it, and we're looking to store 100 vehicles in the old Frolic and Detour parking lot. And once the new parking lot's constructed over at the Subaru, we'll move them over to the new lot.
Okay. And we got letters from the planning department and from the police and fire department. I'm scanning to the parts from the planning department to fill us in here. Ba-doop, ba-doop. It's amazing the amount of paperwork that happens with this kind of license, many pages. Okay, so the note from the planning department said that the proposed use falls into the category of vehicle sale rental defined in the zoning bylaw under section 3.5.22 and is allowed by right. Then they quote from that 3.5.22 vehicle sale rental, that's really all they said there. And the fire and the police have, the police had no problems. The fire department had one concern, which was, if anyone has that right by their hands, I would have them read it, or I can find it here. Oh, it's way at the end? Okay. Oh, I see. I probably have the slightly older version of the packet item that doesn't have everything in it. Okay. Oh, great. Thank you. Yes. So the two concerns they had is that, that fire apparatus be able to access all the rows of vehicles, and that to make sure that the dealership is prepared for potential fuel/oil spill should it occur. So I wanted to give you a chance to comment on those two concerns.
We can certainly prepare for a spill by having some product on site to take care of any spill. But there, again, it's just storage of vehicles, and no maintenance, repairs, or anything of that nature will take place. And as for the fire department having access, the lanes will remain completely open as they are shown on there, so there won't be any block lanes.
Great, thank you. There might be questions or comments from the select board. Alyssa, and then David.
Thank you. Do you have a timeline for the construction, the reconstruction of the lot, when these vehicles would be moved over, opening up access for that existing building where Frolic and Detour was? And also, related to that, are there plans to bring in another tenant, and whether or not that tenant would be a restaurant?
We are hoping to have it remain as a restaurant for a long time. Yeah, that's our thoughts too. It will take about probably $1 million to $1.5 million investment just in the building. It's been neglected for many years. Needs a new roof, heating system, windows, and everything inside. So it's in pretty rough shape. So that being said, we don't have any plans to rent it immediately, but it is going to remain a restaurant as far as we're concerned. As for a timeline, we have one more tenant to relocate out of the old section, which is Huntington Learning Center. They're due to be moved on April 12th, actually, is their move date, over to the first floor of One Nagog. The sales will be on the second floor of One Nagog. So at any rate, they will be moving over, and then we can start taking apart the utilities over there so we can get a permit to take it down. But you're looking at probably 45 days. And then, once from
the restaurant's called Maiori. From Maiori, Maiori will remain, but from Maiori over is coming down. Once that comes down, we will start immediately constructing the new building. So about 45 days out.
A follow-up?
Well, not really a follow-up. So the application, there was a note for listing workers' comp insurance, and the number of employees was left blank, and I was just wondering if you could provide that info.
We can certainly provide the workman's comp info for the company, but we'll have 2 employees.
David?
Thank you. Are these Subaru vehicles? Or are there another?
Jeep.
Okay. And,
There may be some Chrysler Jeeps, but
no,
they're
no, I
all from the
understand.
same
So
parent company.
these are Chrysler/Jeep vehicles that are being sold online and not through the dealership that's on Main Street?
Yeah, anyone that replies to a ad for any of our product online is directed through our internet sales department, and then they're redirected to the store to test drive the vehicle.
Okay. And then the other question I had is when we were approving your site plan special permit, it was noted that at the Chrysler Jeep dealer, cars were being stored on the green spaces. Can you comment on that situation?
Yes, we're hoping this will alleviate that for good. So, because we need the space to get some vehicles off the lot, and sales have slowed up a little, I believe. And that's not my end of the business, but, so we do have a lot of inventory right now, but we will be moving it over here if we get the special permit.
Thank you.
Fran or Dean? No, okay. This is a public hearing, so there might be questions or comments from the public. Does anybody want to speak to this particular permit? Anybody online?
No, 13 people online, none with their hands raised.
Okay, great. Now, if I remember, do you have anything else to say before we close the hearing and make a decision?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, I would happily entertain a motion to close this hearing.
So moved.
And a second somewhere out there?
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of closing this hearing, please say yes or aye.
Yes.
Yes?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Now we're deliberating. Are there concerns from the things you've heard that would make you hesitate to grant this use that is, normally available by right in this particular zoning district? No, given that there's no concerns, then I would, I did have one question for staff, I guess. Do we have any information, John, on either the building inspector or the zoning enforcement officer making visits to the construction site? Are things in order out there?
With regards to the demo that's taken place so far, there was initially a couple comments from nearby residents. Our building commissioner went out and spoke to contractors or people on site, and since then we haven't heard of anything. As far as I know, it's been according to plan.
Great, that's very helpful. That means we could entertain a motion to approve this license. David?
I move to approve a Class 1 auto dealer license for internet sales and vehicle storage for MAG Retail Holdings at 1 Nagog Park.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor, please say yes or aye.
Yes. Aye.
That's unanimous. Please go do internet sales. Thank you. Okay, the next item, number 4, is called Acton Leadership Group Update. So the Acton Leadership Group met, I want to say a week ago, or was it 2 weeks ago now? Two weeks ago. We had already approved fiscal year '25, the spending and the income, but we also, at this meeting, looked at the entire multi-year spreadsheet, and after some tiny adjustments, approved it, which means that's the plan that will be showing up in the town meeting warrant and is available in our packet right now for anyone that wants to inspect it. We also talked about, part of that was understanding, we know that we've set aside, if the override passes, the $6.6 million override, we had already understood that 1.2 million of that would not be taxed in fiscal year '25, so that we would have unused taxing capacity that we could use, hopefully as slowly as possible, over the upcoming years. We needed to make a guess about, we needed to put in the plan a possible use of that over the next few years. So that shows up on that spreadsheet. And we also discussed that coming up, we have, possible capital overrides, debt overrides coming up. On the town side, certainly, we're thinking about this decaying, very decaying DPW building that we're in the middle of understanding how to design a replacement for. And we thought that for that reason and for other reasons, the ALG should continue to meet in some capacity over the next few months. We usually take a long break until the budget season starts up again, but we thought it'd probably be wiser to at least, continue to have the Finance Committee and the Select Board and the School Committee in touch with each other via this Acton Leadership Group to make sure we're tracking budget issues as they come up. I think that's the main stuff I wanted to say, but John and David were both there at that meeting as our reps, and I wonder if they had anything else they wanted to add.
No, you were pretty thorough, except I was wrong. We met just a week ago.
Okay. 1 week ago, okay. Okay. Yeah, I think that's all we need to say. I think in previous years, just to make sure, because I wasn't really paying attention then, the Select Board doesn't formally, we do approve the budget, but we don't formally approve the out-year projections, since those are just working guesses about what's going to be happening in the future. Okay, I'm seeing a nod from David, who has been attending the ALG for the last couple of years, so that's the way it is. Are there any other questions or comments about the ALG process? Yes, Alyssa.
So I know that these are projections, but I wonder if you could just confirm for me and anybody else who's confused, in the out years, the state aid is the same as it was in FY24. So I'm wondering, can we generally expect that to increase? And the same with local receipts? And I think, and I also just wanted to confirm that the overlay after the untaxed levy capacity, that is what we set aside for abatements for folks? Okay.
Yeah, David might have a more specific comment, but I would say in general, the projections into the future are done, either a very straight line method or just carrying the current years forward because of the big lack of knowledge about what's coming up. So it's not a prediction, it's more just a starting point so that we know when we get together as the ALG, where are we starting from, since we know we need to end up with a balanced budget. David?
The general state aid is very volatile depending on the legislature. In fact, they haven't even settled on the amount for next year. The local receipts, if the economy is good, people buy more cars and there's more excise tax revenue, but it's not, it doesn't, so it's a little bit hard to predict.
Yeah, a couple other comments. Just for planning purposes, we anticipated that in FY '26, we would use 400,000 of that unused levy capacity, but that's just a guess. It's no one has decided that. And that in future years after that, the 3 years in the plan after that, that none of it would be used. I mean, the general statement we made was that we want to be really careful stewards of that unused tax levy and use it as slowly as possible. The other general comment I had about the plan was that for those of you who are connoisseurs of previous plans, you'll be familiar with the notion that we start off with a deficit showing in the out years. That's always true. That's just the starting point. It means that when we come together, we know that we have work to do on both the town and school side to bring that deficit down to zero. It just gives us a sense of the level of challenge we're facing. Okay, that's the ALG update. The next one is fun. This is present town manager performance evaluation. So in the packet is a combined performance evaluation that I put together after select board members sent their evaluations of the town manager's performance to our Director of Human Resources, and who she then combined those in an anonymous way so that I could see all the comments but not see who they came from. So I'm going to briefly cover some of the stuff in here, and then I'm going to give a chance for select board members to add things, either that they wanted to express in a particular way or that they thought were missing from the evaluation. And then after that, I want us to have a chance to begin talking about the goals. We all had a chance to express possible goals for the town manager. We are an eloquent board. We came up with a lot of goals, too many, as it turns out. So we will begin the process of talking those through and winnowing them down. They don't have to be finally determined until the point we get to the actual contract, because they belong in the manager's contract. So we might come to an agreement tonight, or we might just have a sense of what issues remain. What else do I want to make sure to say as an opening? Oh, yeah, also, one of the things new this year was that when we opened up this review process, we invited the public and members of boards and committees to send us any thoughts they had about John's performance, and we got those. And if select board members happen to have any comments about the letters or notes that they got and what they gleaned from them, I think that would be helpful. Okay, the first part of the review was sort of a numerical, checkmark exercises, going over 7 basic areas of competency, everything from, policy execution to fiscal management to personnel management. And we were invited to, there were 5 to 7 statements on each of those describing particular, particular skills that are, necessary in those areas. And we were invited to rate each of those on one of 3 levels, excellent and outstanding, that the town manager's work performance is consistently excellent when compared to the standards of the job, meets expectations, the town manager's work performance consistently meets the standards of the position, or 3, improvement needed. The town manager's work performance does not consistently meet the standards of the position. So we had no ratings of improvements needed. And we had, for every single line item that we were asked to rate on, a majority of the select board, and sometimes all 5 of us, selected excellent, outstanding, which I think is a basic summary of how the review was and how people on the board are thinking and feeling about John's performance, that he's doing an excellent job. One thing we did differently this year was, starting last year, John wrote up a self-review, and we all found that very helpful in writing our reviews because he had details about things that had happened that we didn't necessarily know about. That document that he wrote, though, is private. It's part of a personnel file. Since we were all referring to it, I decided to just put almost all of that in the review, commented as, here's what John said, and then added our comments referring back to that self-review. I think that's probably all I want to say for now. We can get into the goals after the first round of comments from the select board, if there are any. Anyone have anything they want to add? No? Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. I'll say one thing about the letters that we got. A small number of letters. They were all positive. They were included people who had worked with, somewhere between 3, 4, and in one case 6 previous town managers who compared you favorably to all of them. The other thing I'd add is that there's a challenge we face when the general view is so good, which is, you're still a relatively new town manager. You have less gray hair than almost any of us here. And we want to make sure you're growing and are feeling challenged. So, there were, both in the goals, there was some, you could see there was some, wishes expressed there about, things you could do even better or differently. And in some cases, people wrote individual things that they, thought were, maybe slight blemishes on an otherwise excellent record. I didn't sense that those particular things that I heard from people were shared by the rest of the board, so I didn't put them into the review. But I did encourage people to make sure they spoke to you individually if they had concerns about, things that were going on. And I'll bet you they will, because we're an eloquent board. We like to speak up. I think that's that part. Before we talk about goals, though, I wonder, John, I'm happy to give you an opportunity to respond to any of this if you'd like to.
Thank you. It's an honor to serve as town manager here for the town of Acton, to work closely with all of you, and I appreciate the opportunity. Certainly the report on my performance, I'm pleased with. I appreciate the support, and I want to say that the work that we do here is done by a lot of people. We have a lot of talented professionals that work in this organization and volunteer in this organization. And so any success that I've had is due to mostly due to that. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about goals. John had listed 3 goals for himself. Continue to develop new programs to recruit and retain talented staff. 2, ensure succession plans are in place for all departments. And 3, ensure all remaining ARPA funds are expended and proper reporting completed. So let me start there. Are there any concerns that board members have with those particular 3 goals as a starting point? Because I'm looking for like nods or heads up or, well, okay, good, good. So that's the first 3. Then, John, you got a thought?
Thank you. I do appreciate this, and I was thinking of the impersonal goal-setting process to be more of a personal exercise as much as my job is a public one, and I get evaluated publicly. I thought the personal goals for my performance could be something we handled a little bit differently.
What process would you suggest, John?
I think we're off to a good start.
Okay.
But thanks.
Okay, yeah. Sort of looking forward to the next stage in the review process. John and I will be meeting with the support of Marianne Fleckner, our Director of Human Resources, to discuss details of the contract. We will have a executive session at our next meeting on the 29th. To review those contract terms, and then partway through that executive session, bring John in and make sure we've all got, an agreement. Go 4 through 12, that's a lot. One way to do this would be to have a short go-round among the board members, and if board members wanted to suggest one of these goals that seemed particularly important, it'd be great to know about that. Not guaranteeing that'll end up in the contract, but it's great to know, where people are coming from. Also, if there's any goals here that we think, oh, yes, if there's any goals here that we think are entirely inappropriate, that'd be great to know too. John, you have some thought about the process.
Thank you. I share equally, I commit to sharing equally in the goals that the board sets for itself every year, and that happens in June. And I see those as the goals that would be a focus of a deliberation such as this. I think goals about my personal performance and things that you'd like me to work on individually, I see are more fitting for an executive session.
We may end up needing an extra executive session, which is fine. Are there concerns about dealing with the process that way, of dealing with the personal goals for John as personnel matters that would be appropriate for an executive session? Dean, you had a thought?
Yeah, I was just going to comment on looking at the goals here that have been laid out. I do think, I agree with the town manager, there are some that certainly should be part of the select board goals process. Specifically goal number 8, that is something I know you've spoken about in the past, and I have. And obviously that's not something that's going to be driven by the town manager. It involves getting feedback from town employees as to how the reports feel the town manager is doing. As a point of fact, the 5 of us on the board really don't have a clue what's going on. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, it's just that's the dynamic of our relationship. And I do think there is a point at which we should be able to provide some sort of a feedback mechanism. But obviously that's going to include not the town manager, it's not his personal goal, but it should be a goal for us, and certainly involve the HR department. So I think that's one in particular, but I think it's easily something that can wait until probably should not be part of the evaluation of the town manager, but certainly should be held over and considered in our goal-setting process in May or early June. The other comment that I would make, again, and you were very clear about this, Jim, that there were some comments made by individual members of the select board that you felt would not meet with the approval of the majority of the board. I've taken note of those, and at the appropriate time, I'll sit down with the town manager with my own personal thoughts on those items. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Dean. Thank you. Are there process thoughts, or both Alyssa and David have thoughts? David?
So, I think the goals that are in the list here, some of which are, really should be part of our goals process. For example, there's one in here, to collaborate more with the water district. I don't think that's a personal goal, right? Anything like that, I think should be part of our goal-setting process for ourselves and with the town manager after town meeting. The personal goals, I think, I agree with the town manager. They're, personal, performance goals, they should be discussed in another way. So to me, for what we're doing right now, I would like to see, if the goals are more personal, that we do them in an executive session, at least to start. And if the goals are more public, that we do them as part of our goal-setting process.
Great, thank you, David. Alyssa?
Thank you. I was just going to offer that maybe it'll be more efficient if we send thoughts on these to Marianne as we did the evaluation, and she can compile those. And then we'll be further advanced when we do sit down in executive session.
Thank you for suggesting that appropriate way of proceeding. So we'll do that. So folks have thoughts, we've heard some thoughts about the goals, but any additional thoughts you have about the details, you can send to Marianne and M. Fleckner at actonma.gov, and then I'll schedule an executive session for us to, wrestle with this more, all six of us. Thank you. Well, that's all I had on town manager performance review. Any final thoughts before we move on? Thanks for doing what you do. The next item on our agenda is a presentation of the draft 2024-2031 Open Space and Recreation Plan. Hi, welcome here. Just to set a tone here, I'm assuming that there will potentially be comments from select board or the public that may need to be incorporated in the plan. So I'm not expecting us to take a vote tonight to approve it, but I'm really eager to have the board learn about all the amazing work that's gone into it and where you've ended up in the public process and in the private process of working on this open space and recreation plan.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Jim. And we've got a couple slides that we'll get up. My name is Nora Massler. I am a planner with the town, and I'm here representing a large body of people who put effort into the plan, including the staff working group, which included sustainability, DEI, conservation, rec, GIS. They're all listed in there. So thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to present the last steps for the Open Space and Recreation Plan update. For those who are less familiar, an Open Space and Recreation Plan is a critical planning document that guides conservation and recreation decisions, and an up-to-date and approved by the state plan is also required to receive Department of Conservation Services grants. Currently, our plan has expired, so we are eager to complete this plan. Thank you. So to provide some background on what has been completed, you can see on the screen the state's process chart. To ensure that we heard continuous input and that the goals were shaped by the community, we exceeded the state's engagement requirements, holding 3+ public meetings, as well as a townwide survey. And as many of you know, since you were in attendance, it started with a public meeting to present the survey results and gather initial feedback on community priorities. We then held a goal workshop and a public meeting about the draft goals and received feedback from relevant boards and committees at their public meetings as well. Today, all of the data has been collected and analyzed. The public meetings have been held. The plan has been drafted, and it's in the final stages of being formatted. But throughout this month, we will be seeking letters of review from boards and committees, as well as the Department of Conservation Services. Next slide, thank you. Updating this plan was a significant effort with contributions from so many different people. I'll let you look at this list more closely when you receive a draft of the plan for review, but I wanted to quickly highlight and thank all those who gave their time and input into this plan, providing data, expertise, local knowledge, community insights, as well as the amazing photographers. If you go to the next slide, we can see an example of the work of one of the 30+ photographers whose images will be published in the plan. Those who contributed, their work is spread throughout all 12+ sections. Here you can see the topics of each section outlined by DCS. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see what you'll be receiving by the end of this week has a blank section 10 public comment. This is a bit of a misnomer because it will hold the letters of review from you, the select board, as well as the letters of review from the other relevant boards and committees that will be reviewing the plan over the next month, and that's why it will be blank. Public comment will be included in the plan, and you'll see that in section 12, and that's compiled through the surveys as well as the minutes from the public meetings. The next steps include review by the Commission on Disabilities of the ADA transition document, which lists improvements to conservation areas to make them more accessible. A draft version of that document will be in the appendix of the plan that you'll see by the end of this week. At the same time, we will be sending the plan to you all, the select board, the planning board, and the regional planning agency, MAPC, requesting letters of review that are required by the state. But we also wanted to gather additional comments. So we'll be requesting letters of review from the Recreation Commission, the Conservation Commission, the Open Space Committee, Sudbury Valley Trustees, and Acton Conservation Trust. Click a couple. There you go, great. Once all the letters of review have been received in May and any necessary changes have been made, the plan will be sent back to the Department of Conservation Services, who will complete their formal approval, at which time the updated plan will be complete and the town will become once again eligible for DCS grant funding. So if you go to the last slide. In conclusion, the plan will be posted to the town's website and sent to you all by the end of this week, and we are requesting a letter of review by May 1st. And as you read the plan, if you or those you speak to have any questions or specific comments about the plan, please don't hesitate to reach out via email at osrp@actonma.gov.
Thanks so much, Nora. It could be that select board members have general questions about the process or specific questions about the structure that you've ended up with. So I wanted to give us a chance for that, and same with the public. Are there any particular questions, or Alyssa?
Thanks. I just want to commend all of the staff for their enormous flexibility through this process, because I know that it had been assigned to one staff person and got switched to another staff person, and I think a third staff person. So I know it's been really challenging, and I just appreciate everybody being willing to jump in and take over and pick up the work. And I think that one of the most impressive pieces of this plan that makes it much stronger than any previous plan is the data that informed the prioritization of the parcels. And it's not even really a prioritization of parcels, it's a unique little, what I'm looking for a word, profile. It's a unique profile of each parcel and what it brings in terms of, protecting water or providing recreation or connection for wildlife. So I'm really excited that that's incorporated into this plan.
David?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to, reiterate and emphasize the timeline that Nora's brought forward. The fact that we don't have an OSRC approved now is actually an impediment for getting grants for open space, and so that's a problem now, and so it's important that we're able to complete this process.
When I think back about the kind of information I brought, or requests I brought to the OSRP process, I guess I wanted to follow up on one of Alyssa's comments, because I haven't seen the prioritized parcel list. In previous years, in previous plans, that's sometimes been a public document, it's sometimes been a private document. The concern had been that making it sort of front and center in the document would be sort of like a developer shopping list, like, oh, look, this parcel is apparently very valuable to the town, so if I could control it, I could sell it for a bunch of money to the town. So in the past, we've gone back and forth on how that information is presented. So I was wondering how you've ended up on that.
That's an excellent question. I think I would kind of defer back to Alyssa's comment. We were able to use the Sudbury Valley Trustees mapping data, and kind of instead of focusing on the ranking, it has specific information about the different natural resource value of each parcel. And so at the end of the day, after speaking with Mike Gendron and the whole group who shaped the plan, I think our hope is that it's looked at for those specific qualities. For example, one parcel may have a lower rating for something like biodiversity, but a higher rating for agricultural soils. So if the town is focused on farming in that specific area, that would be the priority there, really taking it as a case-by-case basis, looking at the value of the land from a natural resource perspective.
Thanks, Nora. Other general comments or questions from board members? No? There might be comments or questions from the public.
Hi, thank you so much. So I have 3 comments or questions, and I've said them before, but I'm going to say them again. Have the priority parcels been reviewed for DE&I? So I feel like the town has been very good at preserving large parcels of land next to rich people. So I want to make sure that we also have pocket parks and prioritization of parcels, because you have thousands of people living on Great Road, and how many parks do you have? None, right? So you have some trails that you might be able to get to open space through some private land, but there's no public access. You have to walk down on a sidewalk or no sidewalk on a highway to get to a mile or half a mile to get. And so the response in one of the hearings was, well, it's only a 5-minute drive. Well, a lot of people don't have cars. So I'm hoping that you've done some work there, and I will be looking for that in the draft. And then the percentage of land. So just like there's only so much water left, and we have to be careful about how it gets allocated to be able to meet community goals, I'm hoping that we all will choose a percentage of land that we hope is preserved at the end of build-out. So to have appropriate planning, you need to take fixed assets to determine how they're going to be used. And then the last thing is, one thing I didn't notice in the last draft that I had seen was under tools for preservation of land for community purposes, either, just preservation or recreation, whatever it is, that, that the zoning and land clearing limits weren't mentioned, and maybe that's changed. But those are tools. They're free tools, so we don't just always have to buy land. We can preserve it through other means. And so I hope that that's in there as far as tools. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nora, do you have any comments about any of those?
Yes, thank you very much for the questions. The first question, I believe, was about the location of, I think it was mostly recreation parcels, considering kind of from a DEI perspective. And I'm really glad you asked this, because one of the maps I am most excited about that's new this year is a map showing where current recreation facilities are with a buffer, so that we can get a sense of what parts of town might be in need of new facilities, whether that's active or passive recreation. So I'm really hoping that that guides, our decisions about both of those types of recreation in the future. And then in terms of planning and zoning, I'll have to look back at the specific action items, but we were definitely considering exploring zoning as a mechanism for land conservation. And I know my colleague Kayla Sauer presented about the Habitat for All initiative, and that was certainly on our minds and raised by the public as the action items for the plan were formulated.
Thank you. And I think the last question was about, did we end up in the goals with a target for percentage of Acton's land that ends up being protected?
Yes, that is a great question. There's not a specific metric, and this was discussed thoroughly. I think when it comes to privately owned land that we're not looking to acquire, that's largely out of our control, because any kind of zoning mechanism that would then conserve open space would have to come in the redevelopment context. In terms of, get my notes together. In terms of looking at a specific number to set a goal for purchasing open space, we really wanted the goals to be both achievable and within our control. So when we considered what would be an ambitious but achievable goal for the number of acres purchased for conservation each year, it came down to the size and number of parcels available for purchase, which is ultimately unpredictable and out of the town's control. So setting up a number without knowing, we could either be overly conservative or overly ambitious. At the end of the day, I believe the town is looking to conserve as much high priority land as possible. In a perfect world, if you're looking for that number, every parcel on the priority list would be purchased for conservation, and that total is 1,360 acres.
Thanks so much, Nora. Was there time left? Yeah, sure.
So thank you for that. And you were also going to work on a walkability map, right? You were going to show how far it is from each group of demographics, how far it was going to be. I thought you guys were going to work on that. Oh, and that's not I don't want to end my last question. And then there's surprise parcels. So if you have a surprise, here's a parcel that's not on the list, well, we don't want it because we're working on these other ones that we may not get. That's always a concern to me. Then the number of acres per person. So the National Park Service does a study of urban areas, and Acton is like on a low end of the number of acres per person that are currently preserved. So just to keep that in mind. But yes, walkability map. And in terms of not choosing a number to go after and keeping as much as, then you often don't get it. But thank you so much.
Thanks. I guess there was a question in there. Can you compare the map you were already talking about with this notion of a walkability map? Are those the same thing, or is there something else?
I can check with our GIS team. We could look at overlaying a sidewalk map to see if that could provide some more insights.
Thanks so much. And I just wanted to join my colleagues in just, admiring the level of work, the degree of outreach, and, the care that's gone into the plan. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Alyssa?
Do we need to assign a board member to write this letter of review, or is that done offline?
That's a great question. Is a letter of review a form that we just fill out, or is it like an actual letter that we need to have someone write?
Great question. I've been looking at the past letters of review, and it does seem like each board and organization drafted their own based off of their personal comments about the plan. So I would recommend selecting someone to draft it if you feel comfortable doing so.
Great, thank you. It could be that there's a board member or two even, who knows, but at least one who would be willing to draft a letter of review. Does that work? Call to anybody, people here? I'm looking back and forth. I'm seeing Alyssa, who raised the question and thus gets to be the primary candidate for such a role, so.
Yeah, I'd be happy to look back at letters from previous iterations of the plans and also review our conversation and draft something.
Great.
After I read the draft, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, and we may end up getting letters from the public that would be incorporated in our review comments, et cetera. So we'll be ready to do that by May 1st. I had a little item in here called Citizens Library Update. And Alyssa and I talked about a couple of things she might update us on. So why don't you take it away, Alyssa?
Sure, thank you. I just wanted to let everyone know that the Governance Advisory Committee for the Citizens Library met for the first time last Tuesday. All 10 members were present in person. It was amazing. What we did was we reviewed the committee charge. We covered some shared agreements that will guide us in how we communicate and work together, which need to be rewritten so they're more accessible to everyone. We discussed how the Citizens Library is operating currently. So Maria, the director, was able to tell us how things are working and have been for quite some time. We shared different components of each member's vision for the future of libraries in Acton. And we also outlined some potential structures that we might learn more about and consider. And I'm really hopeful. This group seems that we are going to be focused on listening to one another and be solution-oriented and expansive in our thinking. So I'm excited.
Great. I think we had the notion of also just reviewing we have an upcoming election for a Citizens Library trustee. Do you want to let us more about whether the trustees have talked about this and what's going to be happening?
Yes, so the process for a Citizens Library trustee to fill the upcoming term, which would be 3 years, because last town meeting, we elected 3 new library trustees. So their terms were staggered, 3 years, 2 years, and 1 year. So Annette Lockree's term is expiring at the end of this year, June 30th, not the calendar year. So we're going to need to work with the town moderator to figure out the process that will be used for bringing nominations forward.
Great, thank you. Is that it? Great. The next item is called Review Status of American Rescue Plan Act Allocations and Discuss Potential Reallocations. John, this is for you.
Thank you. So, as many of you are familiar with, the American Rescue Plan Act was a federal program put forward a few years ago in 2021, and through that, the town of Acton received just over $7 million to invest in projects to help with recovery from the pandemic. The select board, over 2 years, has approved and allocated all of that funding to 27 different initiatives. We have a list of them. If folks are following along at home, the list is published at actonma.gov/ARPA. That list of 27 projects, 19 of those projects have been completed or are substantially underway. Just around 62% of the funding has been spent or obligated in a way that would meet the requirements. Other projects that are not part of that 19 are still in the planning phase. Most of those are still on track and need to be completed. Some of those, though, are less critical than they were when this board first approved them. So there is an opportunity to potentially reallocate some of the funding. There are also 2 projects that the scope changed, and the board, I would feel more comfortable if the board approved the change in scope rather than us just moving forward with those projects. So I can touch on those briefly tonight, but I also would like to come back to the board next month or sometime later this spring with some recommendations for how to reallocate some of the project funding that's being freed up. And so if there are any particular questions about the projects from your recollection or from your review of the project list, I can address those now, but the two projects that have changed a little bit, one is the town's work on South Acton wastewater. That was an allocation to help support the design and eventual construction of additional rapid infiltration basin near the existing treatment plant. That project did not work out and is not feasible. So we're changing gears a little bit, and we'd like to continue work to develop a plan for more subsurface drainage, or disposal rather, at a different location, and also aggressively continue to pursue I&I work, infiltration, and inflow work. And so as a result, we'd like to reduce that funding request to 325 from 500, I think it's 500 exactly, 500,000, and we'd like to reduce that to 325,000. So that frees up some funding right there for things that may come up. The other change, which is submitted actually through a memo from NAGOG Wastewater Treatment, it's another wastewater project. This is for the privately run NAGOG Wastewater Treatment Plant. They identified that the project that was proposed was not going to work the way they thought it was, and they've instead decided to do some relining to their mains, which is more cost-effective and less disruptive. So their original project scope results in funding being returned, but they'd like to use the remaining funding to replace a pump station. So that's a change from what was proposed. We can provide more details on that, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. That's what's being requested. Other things that I wanted to mention, we had set aside, I believe it's $20,000 to help with COVID response, and we did a lot of that. We still have some of that PPE and other things that we purchased, and that stuff is more readily available now than it was then. So that's an example of $20,000 that we could probably repurpose. The big timeline that we need to be focused on here is that although the board has already allocated all the money, it needs to be obligated in an official way by December 31st of this year. And that means either a contract or a purchase order or some other thing that says this is definitely happening, not just a project plan. So an example of another project that's developing a little bit slower than we wanted it to is the fresh air. There was over $500,000 allocated for fresh air improvements for public facilities. We've included that in the electrification study work that we're doing on this building. And so right now we're hiring an OPM, and then we'll hire a designer. And there's a chance that we don't get to obligate all of that money by December 31st, based on just the way things take time. So I certainly am not asking that we reallocate that, because it's a high priority project, but I just wanted to mention that we'll probably come back to you this fall to give you an update on that one. But all the other projects are on task. We've implemented and completed some really important and exciting initiatives with this funding, and as the board has had directed at the time, it was all one-time projects, things that weren't going to add to our operating costs after we spent them. And so we're excited that it's worked out so far, and that's the update.
It could be that board members have questions or comments. Fran?
John, what was the amount of the, that we allocated originally to the NACOG, the private wastewater, and how much are they giving back?
So they received an allocation of $300,000, and the pipelining, which was initially a portion of the project, only cost $62,000. And so they're requesting that $217,000 be reallocated to funding a pump station replacement, which would help support the NAGOD treatment facility, which is, part of the ongoing challenges we have throughout the community to help with wastewater. I don't know that they need an answer on that tonight, but if you had one, that'd be great. Otherwise, we can plan to give you a more formal request at a later time.
David?
I'd love to see a written request for any of, major changes. I mean, it just has to be a paragraph description or a couple paragraphs in the packet. But, I'd rather not vote on a verbal change of $150,000 or something.
Yeah, we have that, and it's something that we should have provided in advance. So we'll get that to you now, and it can be addressed when you next take business.
Great, thanks. I'm looking at the ARPA page and the document that shows the current plan, and it matches exactly what you said, so I appreciate that. I don't see any immediate questions. I do see the need for us to, get back to this, and it's good to know that there is some small amount of flexibility here, or extra resource we might be able to reallocate. One question, what's the, since I imagine we end up, close on some of these things as far as hitting the deadline of December 31st, do we know yet what happens to that money if we don't commit it by December 31st?
That's not going to happen. I'm not worried about it.
Well
But
done.
I
Thank you.
imagine we'd have to give it back somehow, but that's not going to happen.
Okay. Great, appreciate it. Anything else? Any other questions, comments? No? Okay, great.
I guess just
go ahead.
as a preview of some of the initiatives that I am aware of that are already on this list that do need additional attention or funding. Wastewater, obviously, we're talking about how that scope has changed, but that's always going to be an ongoing need, and nothing jumps out immediately, but that's something that will continue to need attention. Transportation. The transportation program has relied on revenue from the parking program, and that, as you know, hasn't been here for 4 years. and it's continuing to strain those programs. So in terms of revenue replacement, that is an area where revenue replacement would be needed, more so than funding a second bus. As much as that's a priority of the board, it's just not something that we could run. We couldn't run a second bus with the current funding scenario, and it would be better to have funding just to run the programs that we have and backfill them to give the parking program another year to catch up. And I think it will. And hopefully by next year at this time, we'll be able to reintroduce that subsidy to the transportation program. So that's one item. Other items are the River Street Park project. The board, at my request, actually reduced the allocation to that program because we received the grants. However, the project had run into some cost challenges over the course of the project, and while we actually took the commuter rail home the other day, and you can see it really, it looks awesome from the train, the park as it is now, but it's not ready. There's some things that still need to be addressed out there, so that could use some of that, maybe some of that funding being reintroduced to that project. And there's a few other items that we're continuing to need to find ways to fund. The sustainability initiatives are all underway, and I think they're making great progress on many different fronts. But more to come on that. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much, John. The next agenda item is called Update on Sewer Extension Project and Potential Impacts to McManus Manor and Dog Park Projects. And I guess by way of getting us started in on this, I'd acknowledge that we got a lot of letters on this, and looking out, some of you are here to speak to these things. I'm not anticipating that I could be wrong on this, but I'm not anticipating that we're going to be making any major decisions tonight, or even minor decisions. But we'll be hearing from you. We'll be getting some facts. We'll be asking questions. And I think there is a place in there for some public comment. I'll see how the time is going. We might end up with a shorter comment period even than the 3 minutes that we usually offer. Given that if we make a big decision about this, it's going to be at a future meeting where people can have a full time to react to any particular proposal that comes up. But with that said, I'd love to hear the latest on this from staff.
Thank you. The sewer extension project, which was a project to extend our municipal sewer system from where it ends now, currently near the Hosmer House and the Dunkin' Donuts property on Main Street, to extend it across Route 2 to be able to serve the new McManus Manor housing development, which is getting underway this year. The project was initially designed with a septic system, but we were able to secure a $2.3 million MassWorks grant to help provide a sewer connection, which was all good news. A sewer connection gives us more flexibility for how we use the rest of the site. As you recall, the McManus Manor project is basically where the Kennedy Landscaping building is now, and next to that would be a park for passive recreation purposes, and then next to that, closest to the highway, is a dog park that's well underway. There's a design nearly completed, there's funding secured. Having a sewer connection gives us more flexibility with those other uses because it doesn't require us to have a septic field on that other parcel that's closest to Route 2. So all that is good news, and we worked pretty hard to coordinate the sewer design so that it lined up nicely with the Housing Authority's project. And we got through a lot of hurdles to get to where we are now, including state review of this project because it required us drilling under Route 2, which is a complex process, if you would imagine. The news that creates challenges for us is that earlier this month, or I guess last month, we opened up the bids for the project, and they were much higher than we had planned, much higher than the funding that we have available. So we had $2.3 million to do the whole project, and we need more like $3.5 million to do the whole project. That's not something that we have. Even if the board decided to reallocate all the money that we were just talking about that's available, it still wouldn't be enough to cover that shortfall from ARPA, for example. So what we've done is connected with MassWorks, the funding agency who supported this project initially. They did get back to us and said, we'll certainly consider a request, but we have a limited amount of funds, and there are several requests like these out there, so it's not something that we can count on. I do expect to hear from them in the next week or so, but it's about just over $1 million that we need, so it's a pretty significant hurdle. We could go back out to bid and try again. The project was pretty complex. Maybe there's a few things that we could change with the design that would maybe bring the price down, or maybe not. Maybe it's already April and all the contractors have picked out their work for the year and we wouldn't get any better pricing. So it's kind of a tough spot to be in. The Housing Authority is out to bid right now to get their general contractor to build their big project. So they had put it out in that way where it would be connecting to a sewer line, which basically means their contractor just needs to connect the pipe to infrastructure. If they need to tell the contractors, okay, actually you need to build an entire septic system, it's a different scope for them. So they, and I know there's a representative here from the Housing Authority tonight, they're concerned about how it would impact their schedule if we were to go back out to bid. So I'm not sure that that's an option. So I think the options that we have are to find the money or secure the fund. We're not able to find it. We have to secure it through partnerships, which we've done in the past. So that's not a, it's a challenge, but it's not something that's a non-starter at this point. There are other impacts to this whole thing happening. So if we do determine that we're not able to secure additional funding or rebid the project in a way that doesn't impact the whole schedule situation, there's also a dog park that's been proposed, and they have funding that's from a private foundation that has some limitations. I think it's more flexible than we initially thought, but it's still a project that they've gotten to the, near the end of the design process, and if we had to go back and say there's going to be septic, it changes the size of it, it changes the scope of it, and it could create some additional challenges for them as well. So there was a lot riding on this sewer bid, and we were hoping we would just open it and charge forward, and we have a setback at the moment. So that's really it. This has been something that we've been working on with state partners and local partners, and it's been a lot of work from our engineering department and Julie Pierce, economic development, and I just wanted to make sure that this was surfaced with the public here at this meeting. I don't know that there's a decision that I'm asking you to make tonight unless you're telling us to take a specific course of action. I'd like to have another week or so to see what we can do. But if there's anything else you want us to do in the meantime, please let me know.
Thank you, John. Let's start with comments and questions from the select board. There could be thoughts that people have. Dean, for example, is our rep to the dog park committee. Talk to us.
So I guess the impact not only on the dog park, but obviously on the housing authority, how much time do we have to make this decision? I know we don't have a lot of select board meetings set up for the month of April. I know we can always schedule another one. What flexibility, for instance, does the dog park have with the Stanton Foundation grant that's out there? We don't want to lose that. What flexibility does the Housing Authority have as far as their bid process? And what's the expiration date on the bids that we do, the bid that we do have in hand for the sewer project? As I'm, I would expect that if you're looking for a decision in a week, that would probably be okay, but if we drag our heels for a month, will a lot of doors get slammed in our face?
Yeah, I think this is something we need to decide in the next 2 weeks. If based on my conversations with the Housing Authority, and I believe the bid is probably good for 30 to 45 days, so we'd be up against it in that case too. So yeah, I think we have less than 2 weeks to figure this out.
Okay, just from the point of view of the dog park, I know that's a very high visibility project. People have worked, I think, 7 years on this so far. And I know that emotions are running very high about wanting to get a decision, get this thing started. So whatever we can do, whatever decision we make, and if you make the decision, at some point, if the board makes a decision, it's going to be a septic system. I think probably this site might not be feasible anymore for a dog park because of timing, topographical constraints, loss of the potential loss of the grant. We end up having to kind of start this whole process all over again and maybe look for a new site, which I don't think any of the folks that have been involved in the dog park this far really have the energy to do that again. I certainly don't. So I think it's really important that we come to a decision pretty quickly on this and move ahead and understand that, if you decide to go down the route of the septic, it's going to have considerable impact on the dog park and potential impact on other pieces of public property which might be subject to dog park.
Other comments from board members? David?
Thank you. Obviously, over $1 million is too big an amount for the town to make up. Fingers crossed that in the next couple of weeks, either we can figure out how to change the contract and go out to bid again, or maybe increase the size of the MassWorks grant. But, from what you were saying, John, maybe that's a 50-50 shot. It's not, it's certainly not a sure thing. One question before a comment. Do we have, what flexibility is there to use the MassWorks grant that we have? Must it be used for connecting the sewer system, or can we use it to provide wastewater treatment for public housing in another way?
So the grant was awarded for the specific purpose of providing a sewer connection for this affordable housing project. And we could certainly request a change, but it would have to be, I'm guessing it would have to be something related to the same project, not a project on the other side of town. We do have a MassWorks grant actively that we're working on for an affordable housing project in South Acton, the Powder Mill project. But I think generally they stay with where they're initially awarded and for the scope that was initially requested. So, for example, they wouldn't give us that funding to build a septic system, or it's for a sewer connection, and I think that's probably where it would end. And if we don't use it, we would likely just give it back to them.
So, I wasn't thinking of doing it something else across town, but you're saying it wouldn't even apply for another method of wastewater treatment for the public housing project? Probably.
I think we would have to demonstrate that it's something that would otherwise not allow the project to move forward. So if we could do that, then maybe, but I think generally it's for public infrastructure, not private infrastructure. I can get back to you on that, but that's not something that we've really discussed with them yet.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering here, is the AHA count as public infrastructure or not? I mean, I understand the issue, and maybe it doesn't because, it can't be reused for something else. I get that, but I think it might be worth asking the question. I mean, I think it's worth asking two questions. Will they give us enough money to cover the construction costs that were higher than expected, or would they allow us to use the existing amount of money in another way? I think those are, the answer to both may be no, but the answer to one might be yes. And my only other comment is, it may be worthwhile in any case to kind of separate the the wastewater treatment from the rest of the AHA project. In other words, there's nothing that says that the contractor that's building or that has the main portion of McManus Manor has to also build the septic system. The septic system could be built in a separate project. And I think it is possible to integrate the septic system with a dog park, but, and I think that's certainly better than starting again on another 7-year project, right, or a 7-year effort. So, again, so I think, trying to first work out something with MassWorks, but if that doesn't come to fruition, figuring out how to manage this as a separate effort, and try to coordinate the wastewater treatment leaching with the creation of a dog park.
So I had the same thoughts that David did, was wondering whether or not the MassWorks grant, because it's for wastewater treatment, could be used for a private on-site wastewater treatment. So I agree that we should ask those questions, either an additional $1.2 million, or can we use this for building an on-site treatment? And, John mentioned that even if we reallocated all of our ARPA that's not, that's available now, we can't reach the 1.2 million, but we could certainly reach the 250,000 if the timing of the Stanton grant doesn't work out. So I'm glad to hear that it's not as restrictive as we originally thought, because I did read an email about the Stanton Foundation maybe shutting down. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but 250,000 is a lot less than 1.2 million, so there's something workable there, I think. And we have a design. And a design for the septic. I realized that the dog park would have to be redesigned.
Question. John, when you put a project out to bid, what is the turnaround time? Like 30 days or?
Yeah, it's usually 4 weeks at a minimum. And we'd have to, we have to put it out, advertise it for at least a few weeks, and then to do 4 weeks later. So I would say 6 weeks is the earliest we could get an answer if we started right now.
I had a couple of questions and some comments. At one point in the sewer project, it became a lot more expensive because of a requirement that came out of the review. Can you remind me of what that requirement was? Especially if is there any way of going back to them and saying, oh, by the way, this stops this project because we can't afford it? I was just wondering if there's any push or flexibility there.
Yeah, thank you. So the project had to go through several reviews. One of them was through the Mass DOT, Mass Department of Transportation, right-of-way permit process, which involved the statewide office, the district office, all reviewing, 30 engineers looking at this plan, coming up with things to say about it that we had to react to. And they were great. I mean, they were responsive and helpful, but ultimately they required that we do a double pipe under the road for redundancy, which is more expensive than a single pipe, as you would imagine. And I think that is one of the matters that made this project complex. And also, it was something that we hadn't planned for. So even if the bidding market was competitive, it would have cost us more than the grant allocated for, because we hadn't planned for that. So that's one thing. And I think there was some minor changes to the pump station and things like that all could be sorted out, but all were things that needed to be addressed. So it turns out that they're just expensive endeavors. And this is, if we had 10 people respond to it, maybe it would have been more competitive, but we only had 2. And so that was tough.
Thank you. Couple of comments. One is, I would love to make sure we hear from, at least the representative from AHA and a representative from the Dog Park Committee on, what happens if we end up having to go with the septic system, so we can understand that better, understand the, the cost and impact if we end up making that decision. The factors that are in the back of my mind is we've just gone through a process, a very difficult process, most of which was because of you and your staff. They did the difficult parts of this coming up with a budget. So I know there's not money lying around, because if there was, we would have already used it. We've gone through a whole bunch of efforts to, expand revenues where we can, reduce costs where we can, and even with all that effort, still need an override. So I know there's no magic 1.2 million out there. The other thing that's in the back of my mind is that we do have, we're up against limits with our sewer system. I mean, you mentioned that before. We had this hopes with the ARPA project to, add another rib or expand the capacity. And so I definitely understand the advantages of having a sewer there, but the balance for me is also that we also save some of that capacity for projects that are already in the sewer district. That we, there's parcels in the sewer district that if they went for a connection to sewer, we wouldn't have the capacity to serve them all. So there is that small light in this possibility. But that's where I'm at so far. I don't have any big, happy answers. Now, if there's not more comments or questions from the board, I'd love to hear from members of the public.
Good evening, Peter Berry, Faulkner Hill Road in South Acton. I'm here on behalf of the commissioners of the Acton Housing Authority. And first, I'd like to express on behalf of the authority and the commissioners our appreciation and really admiration for the way the town has stepped up to support this development of 41 rental apartments for very low-income elderly and disabled individuals. 20% of the apartments will rent to individuals with less than 30% of the income of the area median income. The entire project will be occupied by persons who have income less than 60% of the average area median income. Town meeting initially voted 90% to accept the Housing Authority's offer to purchase the property for the town, from the town, for $1 million. Since then, the town has stepped up with other financial commitments. The select board committed $250,000 of ARPA money. The ACHC, with the select board's approval, committed funding. The community preservation, approved by town meeting, committed substantial funds. So it's really a tribute to the entire town that the support this project has received, particularly when it's when there are so many obstacles and objections to developing affordable housing. But at this point, we have real concerns about the viability of the project. The original commitment letter from what's now called the Department of Housing and Livable Communities required that financial closing take place by December 15th, 2023. The state has shown some patience since then, but it's unclear how long they'll continue their commitment. The major portion of the funding for the project is under the state and federal low-income housing tax credit programs. There's fierce competition for those credits. And I'm sure the state has many other projects looking for funding. We did go out to bid once, as John has explained, this sewer project under the MassWorks program was protracted, mostly because of state required changes in design. Once the state issued the permits for the sewer construction, we went out to bid. We have the ability to submit an alternate to have the bidders switch from the sewer program to the septic system. And right now the bids are due to be opened at the end of this month. And it's really not feasible for us to turn around at this point and rebid the project. So we have to fish or cut bait at this point and either switch to the septic. To my understanding, our architects work very closely with the dog park people. We supported the dog park all along. We worked very closely with them. There was a design for septic. They put out to bid a project that went with the sewers. And I understand that we could switch back to our septic design. They could go with the septic design, but that would require new permits for, wastewater, or stormwater and other kinds of issues that would create it. They have to build it higher because the septic system would be underneath and whatever. But our major concern at this point is whether the state is going to have enough patience to continue their commitment to us if we don't carry through with the bids and award a contract to start construction this summer sometime, or actually probably next spring by the time we get into the ground. But yeah, so thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Peter. Questions might come up. Thanks for being here. Yeah, there's a question right here, for example.
Thank you, Peter. Did you say that you have an alternate in the current bid for a septic system? Did I understand that correctly?
Kelly Cronin is online, so if there are specific questions that she might have more detailed information about to answer, maybe we could consult with her. It's my understanding that we have until April 16th to issue that alternate and request bids on the alternative septic system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so you might have answered my second question, which is we have to decide up front on that. The alternate can't be added later.
Yeah, I mean, if
As far as you-
if you
as
really,
far as you know.
Kelly might be able to weigh in on that, but that's my understanding, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening, Tom Gillespie, current chair of the Acton Dog Park Committee. I'll echo Peter's words in terms of tremendous appreciation and respect for all that has gone on in terms of supporting the dog park project and just even this issue that we're facing in front of us. And I think it's been the impacts on the dog park have been captured very well by John and others' statements. It brings about some uncertainty in terms of the additional costs that we would face for having to take what was a preliminary design for a dog park on top of the AHA's final septic design and turning that into a final design that is over the septic system that is suitable for going out to bid. So there's work to be done to bring that preliminary with the sewer to a final design. I think those costs are relatively minor. And then as Peter mentioned, we have just recently gotten sign off from Conservation Commission for stormwater management without the septic system. That probably would have to be redone, and we know the costs associated with that. So in addition to some of the other impacts, there will be some additional funds needed to bring the dog park design up to bring a dog park design that can be on top of the septic system forward enough that then we can go out to a bid. We're facing a DOT permit work and then the timing to go out to the bid. And even if there were, if we could get that all done, if the ARPA funds were necessary for that, Alyssa, as you mentioned, we still have to, the whole thing is tight, right? So the sooner we get some answers, the better. And it's a pleasure to work with everyone in this town for, making this happen. Any questions? I'm happy to answer them.
There seemed to be some back and forth or confusion about the status of the construction grant, how long it lasts for, whether the program is disappearing, whether changes in our schedule would make us ineligible for the construction grant, et cetera.
Alyssa alluded to this. They have sunsetted this entire Stanton grant for dog parks in Massachusetts, but we don't think that affects us because they granted us the amount. But then what does that mean for the overall plan? John, do you want to share what you shared with me earlier, or?
Yeah, thank you. So the Stanton program is ending granting, but we already have one. We initially thought they were requiring us to go out to bid this spring or we would lose it. It turns out we would have another year to do that, but I think that would be it. So I think we'd have to get it out by next March or April, the bid, and have a contract to show them in order to get the reimbursement or however the funding goes, so.
Thank you. Yeah, one other impact, the longer we wait to go out to bid, the costs are going up, it appears. Also, the design for a dog park on top of the septic system requires a fair bit more grading of materials because the land has to be raised for adequate septic system, and you can't just have a mound, you need to have reasonable for accessibility slopes, et cetera. So I worry a little bit about increased costs for the additional fill coming in there. Now, maybe the fill and cut equation with the housing authority brings that to neutral, but we haven't figured any of that out because the septic was making that moot. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Really appreciate it.
Claire Siska, 14 Stowe Street. I'm a member of the Dog Park Committee. I just have a couple things to just throw out to you. And I know that you guys have been very supportive and will do everything you can do, and John's been awesome to work with. I didn't write in a letter of support, but I'm voicing it for your review. Just a couple other things. I wanted to point out that my understanding was that the sewer extension was also planned to potentially be a backup to the public safety facility should they ever need to replace their septic system. I could be wrong about that. The dog park, I always do these emotional things. The dog park design is beautiful. We've consulted with the, historical people. We've consulted with Green Acton people, the sustainability people, with transportation. We've really come up with a beautiful plan. And yes, you can put it on top of a septic system, but it ain't gonna be the same. It's gonna be smaller, it's not gonna be as attractive, it's gonna be on top of a lump. I don't think it's very practical. But also, there's a timing issue with the sewers. We can move forward and potentially have a park this fall. And people have been waiting over 7 years for this park. If we do the septic, we will have to wait for the septic system to be built in order to put the dog park on top of it, which means, I don't know, John or Peter, when your septic system would be built. But I'm thinking 2 years, which means I don't know if we would get Stanton money. Also, so let's say the dog park goes away, just does, and we all go home and do other things with our time. Then you're back to 2010 and saying, what in the world are we gonna do with these 2 parcels that we have been fighting over since 2010? I know you guys don't have the money, and if you had the money, you would give it to us. But I hope we can come, I wonder about, so like a little bit of ARPA money. This is crazy, but what about CPA? Like they've got $300,000 for windows. Would they be willing to give up the $300,000 for their windows, wait another year and give us the 300? I don't know if that even is possible. And I just wanted to ask if you have alerted our legislative body. Jamie Eldridge in particular was very helpful in getting that grant pushed forward quickly, and I hope that they've been brought into the process, and if not, I hope that they will be very soon. So I'll close with that. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Claire. Matt, there's someone online who'd like to speak to this question.
Yes, Kathy Fochman. I believe I said that correctly, but if I did not, please feel free to correct me.
Thank you, Matt. That was perfect. Hi, it's Kathy Fochman, 18 Wright Terrace. I'm the chairman of the Friends of the Dog Park Committee. I did write to you, but I'll just make my comments online. The construction of McManus Manor and the Acton Community Dog Park have faced and overcome challenges over a period of many years with the support of a simply outstanding group of town staff and volunteers that are on the Acton Housing Authority and the Acton Dog Park Committee. We are on the brink of 2 shovel-ready projects. And I have to say, the alignment of the 2 projects has been outstanding. And it's certainly the finest collaboration among boards and committees and organizations within the town that I have witnessed myself. So the Dog Park Committee, or rather the Dog Park Design and Construction Project, has been exhaustively planned to seamlessly coexist with the installation of the Main Street Sewer Project. Unfortunately, since the monies have fallen short, we do have the funding gap. So with the Housing Authority potentially needing to utilize a septic system, this does significantly delay the dog park construction and possibly threatening its construction in terms of funding from Stanton. And I think we've clarified the fact that new grants are not going to be forthcoming. My concern is that if we had to give up the project for the year, we couldn't reapply for it. So, what the hope is that if the sewer extension can go forward, that, as Claire mentioned, the best case scenario would be to construct the dog park this year. I wanted to let you know that the Friends of the Acton Community Dog Park has retained a legal team to officially register as a nonprofit 501c3 organization. So we're poised and ready to assist the town in the construction and maintenance of the park. That has been our intention all along, and we're moving forward. So I have to say the commitment and the resources behind these 2 projects is strong, but they are time sensitive. You've made that abundantly clear. So delaying the 2 projects will miss windows of opportunity and ultimately cost the town more in the long run due to project redesign and construction cost escalation. So, if at all possible, now is the time to push both of these projects to completion. So we urge you to bridge the sewer extension funding gap, if at all possible. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kathy. I'll note that over the last few weeks, as we were planning agendas, I kept coming up with things that maybe would require an extra meeting, but we kept trying to avoid it. But this certainly is the sort of thing that has, pushed that over the edge in my mind. So you can expect some logistical emails, about when we might meet again, because we'll need to meet before the 29th if there is some possible way forward for us. So, yeah, it's my way of saying, we're going to keep working on it, staff's going to keep working on it, and there may be another meeting for us to talk about it. Any final comments or thoughts? Yeah, John?
Thank you. I just wanted to address 2 of the questions that came up in the comments. One, with regards to the public safety facility, that septic system was installed when the building was constructed in the 90s, or 20 plus years ago. It's not an end of life. We certainly thought that having a manhole in the street from this new sewer project would give us the opportunity to potentially connect someday, but it wasn't a critical portion of the project. And even if we removed that manhole, it would save us, you know, $5,000 or $6,000 instead of, you know, so it's certainly something we could scale back on, but it's not enough to compel us to do the project for that building. And the other question was,
About contact with the legislature?
oh yeah, I have been in touch with our state senator, yes.
Thank you. So wait for more. Sorry, there's no big helpful conclusion, but we're going to keep working on it. The next agenda item is called Approve Use of 468 Main Street for the Acton Garden Club Plant Sale on May 18, 2024. John, you want to talk us through this?
Yes, for many years, maybe decades, the Garden Club has held an annual plant sale, and as long as I've been here, it's been next door at the property we refer to as the Red House. I would like the board to authorize us to execute a license agreement to more formalize that use of the property. It's something that we do when other nonprofits use other town lands, and we just had never done that. So that's really all this is if the board approves the use, we'll carry forward and implement the license, and we'll have something to refer to. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to address them. I think the date is actually off by a day. It should be the 19th, or when it starts.
Okay.
So that would be the only addition to the agenda.
And I've forgotten, John, did you have a sample motion in your email to us?
I mean, the agenda listing is almost good enough if you just
Great.
change the date.
Okay. So that would suggest, unless there's any questions, that we introduce a motion to approve the use of, have the town manager write up a license agreement to support approving the use of 468 Main Street for the Acton Garden Club plant sale in May 19, 2024.
So moved.
Second, there is a hand up, but I don't know whether Kathy Fochman's hand just didn't go down after the last item or whether she re-raised it.
Matt, you want to offer a chance for Kathy to say anything if she wants to? She is also involved with Garden Club.
Yes, Mr. Chair, she should be able to speak now.
Thank you very much. Yes, I would like to speak pertaining to this event. The event is scheduled for Saturday, May 18th.
Okay.
And I think there was, originally it was posted as the 19th, so the change is to make it the 18th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to offer a friendly amendment to Alyssa to change the date from the 19th. to
I will
18th,
accept that friendly amendment.
And I'll resecond.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. My only comment is, I had the opportunity to go into the basement of the Red House recently in my role as an energy coach. And so there's a whole bunch of Garden Club stuff for the sale in the basement. So I assume that'd be part of the license agreement, that they can continue to keep stuff in the basement associated with the sale?
Oh, yeah, I think that's part of it, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Any other comments or questions before we check on this one? No? Okay. All those in favor, please say yes or aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay.
You have another hand up.
Yes, there was. Okay, so Royce, it turns out that we've already approved this, but if you'd like to say something, you're still very welcome to. Matt, can you see if Royce wants to say anything? Oh, okay, he put his hand back down. Okay. If you got anything to say, you can always write to SB at, oh, he's back up. Matt, let's let Royce Fuller speak.
Yes, they should be able to speak now.
Yeah, I just want to be sure 18th is the correct date. It's a Saturday. The 18th is the correct date.
Absolutely, and our motion was changed to specify the 18th, and we're all clear that it's happening on the 18th, which is Saturday.
Okay, my wife is a very strong member of the of the garden club, and she's the head of the pennant sale.
Mm-hmm.
And she was very concerned that the wrong date was posted, so I just want to be sure that it's clear the motion approves the 18th.
Yep, we got you.
Thank you.
Yep.
I just want to let everybody know that there will also be a bake sale the same day at the Acton Women's Club. So you can come and get a plant and a pie. And you should show up early enough to find parking.
This is why I love the town I live in. Thank you. Okay. Next item is called Discuss Special Town Meeting and Assign Select Board Member to Article and Consider Voting a Recommendation. And we also have the draft mailing in the packet. That needs to go out by the 3rd. Tentatively, in talking with John, I was comfortable with the notion that if there were any last-minute changes to this thing, that I could work on them with the town rather than requiring the select board to, review every single word here and agree on it tonight. But on the other hand, it's a pretty simple thing there. The only change that I know about came about today was an alternate email address for Jane Moosbrooker, so that'd be sort of an administrative thing that I could work out with the town. But first it would be good to understand who might be the select board member assigned, and if anyone wants to discuss whether we would approve or not approve or recommend this motion, the citizens petition, that'd be great to know too. So any thoughts out there among board members? One thing I heard before at the end of the last meeting was that it might be wise to have the same person who ends up being assigned to the South Acton Village or the MBTA zoning at the main meeting might be an appropriate select board member for this one. So we could delay on that decision for a few more minutes until we get to the main warrant. And I guess I'm also wondering if anybody has whether they're inclined to to have the board be in favor or opposed or defer a recommendation. Any thoughts on that? David?
I would vote to not recommend this article. It's confusing to me. The wording is confusing. I'm not sure exactly what it would mean. The thing that I'm not in favor of is especially the maximum impact. The maximum impact never comes to fruition, and so it's silly in some ways to consider that. So, I would be against this.
Are there people that would like to argue on the select board that would like to argue for a different position? Because we could put a motion on the table to recommend against it, and then we could have a discussion about that, including citizen comment. So yeah, why not? Seems like there's no one who's excited about supporting it. So do you want to put a motion in place?
I move to not recommend Article 1 in this special town meeting.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so a motion's been seconded. Now we can have a conversation about it. Is there any more thoughts from board members before we hear from the public? Alyssa?
Thank you. I agree with David about the wording maximum impact and how that's not very useful because it would not come to fruition. There also is no distinction of what impact we're looking at. And I've read in the email and heard in the meetings that both ours and the Finance Committee meeting that folks want us to look at water demand, water quality, risk of displacement of folks who live in lower, more affordable housing, and a number of other things, but that is not specified here. However, about 400 people, citizens, signed this petition, and unless it's just lip service that we are going to take into account in our decisions the will of the residents, that's, more people than are at a town meeting at, 10 o'clock at night, and sometimes even at 7 o'clock. So I'm inclined to vote to recommend it, and obviously I would have to vote no to not recommend it. But I'm also thinking that I might abstain because of that phrase, maximum impact, and feeling that it's not very helpful.
Dean?
Yeah, I would vote to not recommend this because it's poorly conceived. It was clearly a political maneuver. I spoke with a number of constituents who signed the petition, all of whom felt that they were provided inaccurate information. They were told that it was going to be at the regular town meeting, which would be more appropriate, more opportunity for input, and would not be expending uselessly a great deal of taxpayer money. So I would recommend against this because I don't think we want to encourage this sort of activity that was deliberately designed to jump ahead of the regularly scheduled town meeting.
Fran?
And I guess I'll chime in. I too would be an abstention. I am still stuck that we're having an extra town meeting. But I do think, and I don't know if I should voice this, impact studies are great. I think it's important, but I also think this is targeted toward the MBTA zoning specifically, and I just don't know what kind of time frame we have for doing an impact study, and I don't know. So that's my feeling.
That I would like to register my lack of support for. And I think that voting and to not recommend this article at this time is the main way we get to do that, because that's what shows up on the printed warrant that goes out to people. Anyway, I think we've all expressed our opinions. There might be thoughts from the public.
Hi, thank you. So there has been a
Excuse
tradition.
me, point of order.
Yeah.
We have never taken public input on our recommendations for a town meeting.
It's up to the chair, though.
Yeah, I'm going to allow it this time, but I appreciate that. It's good to remember.
So you've also, I can't remember all of the history, but it's my understanding that select boards have not made recommendations on citizens petitions, but rather left it to the town meeting members. So I helped with this petition, and I got, out of 450 signatures, I think I got 420 myself. So, and I was very specific about special town meeting. The officials, the people on committees and boards knew very well what a special town meeting was, asked me about the costs, and they said, basically, it was a smaller cost to do that than to make poor planning decisions of this magnitude. So I suspect that, I think the 20 signatures were at a Democrat town meeting, and I'm glad, committee meeting, and I'm glad that Dean is talking to Democrats, so that's exciting. But this was designed to be specifically before the regular town meeting because of the way that the select board orders the articles, and could very well put this article after the MBTA and the other zoning votes. So it would be of no use. In terms of the deadline, over 30 towns have been given an extension to December 2025. Please keep that in mind. Towns all over are pushing their decision on MBTA zoning to the fall and engaging in impact studies. I didn't want to dictate or suggest any specific impact studies, but leave that to you based on the conversation Some of these impact studies can be done very quickly and for free. I'm writing a memo right now to explain my thoughts on that to the FinCom as requested by the FinCom. And I think that's it. Oh, in terms of not encouraging, I'm not sure what to not encourage people to speak their free speech or to exercise their rights under state law to engage in a petition process that's there specifically for if officials are not listening to you. So I've been going to these hearings and saying, gosh, what about Dover Heights? What about the tenants? What about this? What about that? And then it's just in one, it doesn't end up being, getting into the plan. I think we should take Dover Heights out of it so that we don't have 72 lower income families facilitated, that our vote could facilitate a high displacement risk, because if the value of that property goes from 10 million to 20 million overnight, what do you think is going to happen if they, the owner will basically be saying, well, no, thanks, I don't want to make 10 million extra dollars. I'll just leave these families here. I doubt that's going to happen. On Railroad Street, there's families there that they would be able to put 10 luxury apartments on an acre of land, or is it 25? Anyway, you can look yourself. My point is it seems
This is the special 3-minute flag.
Oh, yes, so am I
Yeah.
done, or do I have another 10 seconds? What was the rule on that? I didn't catch the.
If you can finish your sentence, that would be
Okay,
great.
yes, so I feel like impact studies are responsible. I feel like that if you deferred and listened to the conversation, that you could decide afterwards if you think that impact studies are a good thing to do, so we know what the meaning of our vote is. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there further comments from the public or from the select board before we take a vote? Alyssa?
Thank you. So I just want to respond to a couple of things. One is I agree with Tara that we do not want to be discouraging citizens, regardless of how we feel about the process. I am working very hard to distinguish between my great disappointment in how this process was abused in this situation and the voice of the 400 people that signed the petition. And I heard at our last meeting when we first discussed and scheduled this special town meeting from a number of people that we should figure out how to change our bylaws or, some way discourage this. And this is a First Amendment issue. Citizens have the right to redress their government for grievances. So I think I will be voting no on the motion that's before us. I also want to address the comment that was just made that officials are not responding, because I attended the planning board hearing on the 19th, and I asked a question and heard from our planning director that through this whole process that has been going on for 2 years now, one other person asked the same thing, and it didn't get incorporated into the plan because it was one person. And that person was on the working group, on the South Acton Action Plan Working Group. So that person was at the meetings, had the inside scoop. So I think that what's really disappointing about this whole abusive process is that there were so many ways to get a whole bunch of people on board. I did it myself, to go to the public forums, to speak at meetings, to write emails, and that's how you get people to put input into the process. And the people that created this plan listened, and they made significant changes based on that public process. So I just want to say, Tara, that just because you asked for something and you didn't receive agreement from everybody else who was involved in the process does not mean that we need to bring it to special town meeting for another go at that. So I will vote the way I'm voting, but I wanted to say that.
Comments from board members before we check the vote? David?
So I want to say that there's nothing in this article that would require any kind of report from Dover Heights. In fact, the people who have put this petition forward have mentioned many, many other things that are not written here. It only counts what's written here. I also agree with that this is an abuse of the process. The petitioners had other alternatives. And I've been on the board before where people asked us to put one article before the other, before another, and we did it. At that time, we made that change. It's not common, but we made that change because it was clearly important that this, in that case, that the one question be answered before the other one was asked. And finally, they can ask town meeting to reorder articles, right? So they can get up at the beginning and ask the moderator to take a motion to take Article 43 first, or whatever they want to do. They chose not to do those things. They chose to cost the town the most money possible in this process, so that they could have, I mean, I've heard Tara say this before, that what she wants is to have a platform to be able to say what she wants to say. So, and finally, we do make recommendations on citizens petitions articles. We made them on every one last year, and there were, what, a dozen.
Final thoughts from the board before we take a vote? No? Okay. I see you standing there, Tara, but we're going to move to a vote.
The max came from most impact studies. The scope of work for the consultants are to examine the worst case scenario. So that's why we said max. And I didn't use it to recruit people. It's only to educate people. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Okay, so the motion to review is to have a recommendation in the warrant to vote against the citizen petition. And those who are in favor, please say yes or aye. Yeah.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's 3. Oh, sorry. Aye, okay, that's 4 votes aye. And those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Okay, so that's a 4-to-1 vote. And that's the recommendation we're going to make. Thank you. We still have the question of whether we want to assign someone on the select board. Our idea before was to wait until we get to the next item, so why don't we do that? The next item is called Review Annual Town Meeting Warrant and Assign Select Board Member to Articles and Consider Voting Recommendations. So what we have we're handed was a cool spreadsheet that lists all the warrant articles. It fits on one page this year. That's a good sign. I took a quick pass through this to suggest who might be the select board representative. That's not on this particular sheet, but it's available on a PDF or something that we could show on the screen. Tom could get that ready. So I want to make sure we go through these and agree on the assignments, and then for things that are particularly easy, let's go ahead and vote a recommendation. Or it could be that there's so many that are going to be easy that if there are any that, this would be a better process. If there's any that people think we need more discussion about before we vote a recommendation, let's identify that. Otherwise, we'll take a single vote that includes all of the items that we're willing to recommend without further discussion. Choose town officers. I put myself there as the chair, but I'm happy to have anybody else who wants to deal with it. The hear and accept reports, similar, that's a consent item, so it might not even come up. Budget transfer, I didn't even know if we're going to have an item on budget transfer. Do we know yet?
We're not planning on it, but
Okay.
we need it just in case.
Yeah, okay. Then town operating budget, this would often be the chair, but my feeling is that David's been more deeply involved in that on the ALG than I have, and I thought maybe it would be appropriate to have him there. And I didn't know, David, if you were willing to do that, and, or if, okay, I'm seeing a yes, or if there are other people that would like to be doing that instead? No? Okay, that's David. Similarly with town, I wasn't sure, I've split up these town capital items between David and Dean. A lot of sort of design and construction stuff sort of seemed to fall in Dean's wheelhouse with his deep experience with the town. So that was one potential way of splitting that up. Dean and David, are you willing to split these two items up that way? You okay with taking that on? Okay.
That's fine by me.
Okay.
Also, Dean does an excellent job, so. It would
Yeah,
be-
yeah.
So either way.
Okay, great. So let's just split it that way. We'll have David on 5 and Dean on 6. David has been our liaison to the regional school district, so it made sense for me to have his name there. I've been the liaison to the Minuteman, so I'm there. Dean's our liaison to CPC, so his name is there. On to the zoning bylaws, which are much more interesting and have a lot of question marks next to them. Alyssa.
I just want to alert everyone that the planning board hearing is continued until tomorrow night, so they have not taken a vote on recommending these four. So I don't think it's appropriate for, obviously, for us to assign it is appropriate to a select board member, but just wanted to make everyone aware that we shouldn't vote on a recommendation tonight.
Yeah, okay, so we were wanting to pick out items that we wouldn't just blanket approve. So let's just note that 20 through 23 are going to require more discussion and possibly not a decision tonight because of the planning board. In terms of the assignments, vehicle sales rental was written up by David and so it seemed natural to have him be assigned. The Assabet, the next three I think are all related. I was willing to do it as the person who has been the liaison to planning, but I also recognize that other board members have spent more time than I have on the South Acton Village and the MBTA overlay district. So any thoughts on that? Like people saying, I'd like to do that, or I'm willing to do that, or any of that? Fran, you're saying something. Why don't you go ahead and press that button and say it out loud?
I was on the South Acton Village Advisory Committee. Do you want to split these up, or do you want to keep them together?
Well, I did think that the village, at least in the presentation in planning, the MBTA and the South Acton Village were so closely, related. It made sense to me to have a single person on them. Yeah, so that was my thought. But I think it's also good to, we can work on that together and split up the presentation. I think as long as we're coordinated, then I think that could work out fine. And, your name hasn't popped up yet, although it's about to. So, giving you some things to do might make a lot of sense. So that would be.
So why is my name next to you?
Right. So I think that suggestion is that I do the MBTA, that we split those somehow.
I wouldn't mind splitting if you wanted to do that.
Yeah, well, wait, splitting which two? The last two, the MBTA and the South Acton Village District?
Yeah, 17 and 18.
Okay, so keeping 17 as Jim for now. And then the question is the Assabet River Overlay District. If people feel like if there's anyone here who feel like they've spent a bunch of time on that, I'd be happy to defer to them. Or, I've been watching it, so I'm happy to do that. Okay. David, you have a thought?
So, two things.
Yeah.
One is, we might want to reconsider the assignment when we make the recommendation.
Right.
Maybe we don't want to make the recommendation tonight. And the only reason I say that is, it might be more comfortable for someone making the presentation if they agree with the recommendation, right? So, anyway, that's my only thing. I have attended, I think, most, if not all, the Powder Mill zoning district open things. I'm happy to do that. I also note that Alyssa doesn't have something yet, and many of these, Alyssa's been there, so either way, I'm happy to do that. I'm pretty familiar with the Powder Mill zoning, and I'm also in touch with one of the select board members in Manor. So, but maybe Alyssa's also very touched.
Yeah, Alyssa, are you drawn to any of these in particular?
I think I agree with David that we might want to wait until we know our recommendation to assign them. Can you, before we continue through these, can you alert us to which ones will have presentations? Because I'm assuming not all of them.
The ones that are on consent typically do have sort of emergency presentations prepared by staff, so that if they do come off consent, we'll have something to work with.
Okay.
It's usually very simple.
Thanks.
Yeah. And my experience in the past is that when things come off of consent, we do have the slide and we can say things, but we often rely heavily on turning a lot of questions over to staff who are, more deeply prepared. So, okay, yeah, let's keep the question marks there, and we can come back and consider the assignment person when we actually vote this. This might be another thing that comes back to a meeting before the 29th, because otherwise we can't get our names printed in there, and there should be a name. There should be a name of a select board member printed in here, so this may be the sort of thing that would come back to an extra select board meeting. So moving on, Fran, you'd had a bunch of involvement, I think, with the lease, so I tentatively put your name there on Lease Maple Street.
I'm very excited about 20 and 21.
Yeah, okay, good. And same thing, I should do like an EDC thing for the tax increment financing. Okay. Here's another complicated one, gas-powered leaf blower phase out. I did prepare a little table, which I'm not going to show unless we decide to talk about it, that had, basically shows the differences between the last article that David presented to the select board and the petitioner's version, which I think will help inform a discussion about this. 20 of 10. My instinct would be, if we're going to have an extra meeting, to save that for that extra meeting, rather than try to slog through this at 20 of 10. But I don't know. Dave, do you have a different thought about that?
You could leave it like that until we vote on the recommendation, too.
Yeah.
And again, it may be more comfortable for someone to take the majority opinion.
Yeah, I think, and this is one of those ones that will, at least based on our conversations in the past, is unlikely to be unanimous support, or we're not going to have a unanimous reject recommendation or unanimous support recommendation. Okay, Historic District Commission, that seemed like Fran, because there you are. Now, in the past, we've often had one select board member who's dealt with all of these. I thought I'd try something different this year and just mix it up. So that would be Alyssa as our rep to open space to talk about accept land gift, whatever that is. Oh, of course. Oh, wait. Is that you, David? Are you being our rep to the open space committee?
I am the rep to the open space. I am not aware of a specific land gift, but maybe this is just in case there are land gifts.
John, enlighten us.
Over the last several months, we've been contacted by a few residents who are interested in donating land to the town. This would cover one of those. There's some due diligence that we're still working on, but that's a placeholder for either or both of those.
Okay, so these are basically non-financial, like gifts to the town, not complicated ones with lots of money involved.
I think they shouldn't be complicated, and if they are, we won't bring them forward.
Okay. Alyssa?
I'm happy to take this item, even though I'm not open space rep. Liaison, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry for to be confused about that.
Those are my neighbors.
Okay, okay. And David, you okay with letting that go? Okay, great. There we are. Prudent investment rule, it had finance written on it, so I thought maybe David. Revolving funds, I thought Fran, because Fran doesn't have many, and I just was going through the names. Revolving funds budget, I went to Dean, and so on. You can see the names here. Basically, I just tried to free associate about which of these things seem to relate to which of us. And if there's any concern or confusion about any of those assignments for the consent items, speak now.
I'm wondering if, Fran, you want the revolving funds budgets?
You okay with, Fran, you okay with taking, okay, great, okay. Dean, so, what would you do? Did we just change revolving funds budgets from?
Well, I was wondering if you, Fran, you wanted to do the revolving fund budgets.
Yes, these are
Yes, but
consent
you-
items.
You have to be prepared in case they're held.
Yeah,
And so,
Okay,
well, I thought that Dean or I could take them. So you just, you have to be prepared to answer questions. And so it might involve a lot of research for a small thing. So whatever you want is fine with me.
You're the money person.
So Dave, were you talking about number 28 or number 29 there? Sorry, number 45 or number 46?
Number 45.
Okay. Fran is graciously letting you do that. That's what I'm hearing. So let's change line 28 to say David. Great. Any other concerns or questions? No, okay. Great, so that's, it seems like we're at the point where we could vote recommendations on all of them except for the four zoning ones and the gas leaf ban. David?
So two things. One is I would like to vote for the zoning ones tonight for two reasons. One is I think it's unlikely that they're going to change. And if the planning board did change one, we can come back and change our recommendation. So, or we can put in recommendation deferred in in here. But maybe we want to have where we're leaning, print recommendation deferred, but decide where we're leaning and and decide who might present these. Because I think it's important, like you said, to have it printed in the warrant, what select board member to contact. And my second is a concern, but only if Alyssa's concerned, is Alyssa doesn't have any presentations.
No.
So, and so.
The only presentations with Alyssa's name on it are the ones on consent?
That's correct.
Oh, that's not right.
And so I think she should have something to present, unless, so I think that would, whatever, if she's interested in some of the zoning ones, she could take some of the zoning ones.
Yeah.
But
Feel free to help yourself.
You drawn to one or the other of the zoning articles? Which, does one call to you?
South Acton, maybe?
Okay. So I would suggest Alyssa doing the South Acton one. Now, David, I think what you're suggesting also, which I'm very comfortable with, is having a quick, sort of a straw poll to understand where we're at, because we might be ready to vote these recommendations. Okay.
And we can still, maybe in the printed warrant, say recommendation deferred, if we don't know exactly the text, because the planning department might change, but we can go
Right.
far enough that we can decide who we want to
Right.
present these.
Okay. So this
So
is
this-
go ahead,
Point of
Alyssa.
order. So
Yeah.
this is not contrary to the proper process. I thought that the select board would vote to recommend zoning articles and place them on the warrant after the planning board brings them to the select board. So if we go through this process tonight, and the planning board is doing the recommending vote tomorrow, that seems really rude.
Yeah, so I think we need to make a distinction here that we're not voting for whether we're recommending these articles in terms of printing them printing recommended in the warrant. We're merely taking, we're trying to explore the general sentiment of the select board to make sure that we've assigned appropriate people for these. So that if there's some that we're all leaning in favor of, that makes it easier to have a select board person assigned. Whereas if there's some that are more deeply divisive, then it's trickier.
Okay, I did hear that staff was bringing additional information to the board tomorrow.
Oh, great.
And we even had that, some of that information in our packet, so.
Oh, good. Is any of the select board members, John has a thought?
We just checked the calendar. The warrant's going to be printed on the 16th. The Monday, and the 15th is a holiday.
Yep.
So we would need to have anything you want in the warrant to be determined by the 14th, or it would be better to have, the 12th. The 12th is a Friday, so
Yeah.
that would be the last day to have decisions made.
Well, I also heard some deadlines related to the sewer question that had to be decided by the 16th as well. So that might suggest that same, having a meeting on the 12th would fit both of those.
Or any day before it, yes.
Or any day before that. Yeah.
Since staff doesn't work Friday afternoons, maybe it's better to have a meeting on the 11th.
Yeah.
A midday meeting, or I don't know what everybody's schedule is.
Yeah, so we can do those logistics out unless somebody knows that like they're gone that entire week or something. But even then, we could meet as a 4-person board if we needed to, or have someone participate remotely. Is anyone immediately concerned about us having a meeting on Thursday, the 11th? Dean?
So what date are we talking about?
Talking about Thursday, April 11, potentially?
Yeah, I'm not available that night. But I'm just one member.
Yeah.
But in the evening or during the day? I suspect that almost everybody's busy in the evening. There are 3 things that go on that I know of. But if you're talking about a noon meeting, maybe, I don't know whether.
Still not for me.
Okay. Yeah, I prefer to have you there because there are some of these issues in which you've been in an important minority position. So I'd rather make sure we get that voice as part of the conversation if possible. What about the 10th? That would be Wednesday, like especially during the day, especially because that's.
I'm actually going to be out of state. 9, 10, 11.
Okay. That's a different ball of wax or a different kettle of beans. So is there any chance that you would be able and willing to participate remotely, or are you going to be like off the grid?
Not be available.
Okay, so we may need to go ahead without you.
Can I make another suggestion to see if it this way? How about on Friday morning rather than Friday midday? 9 o'clock or something? Are you back on the 12th?
I could do that.
Okay, and that gives staff a maximum amount of time to, get ready for sewer things. So the morning of the 12th is what we're thinking of now. I guess I should even look at my own calendar. That would be wise. Morning of Friday, April 12. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so tentatively, we're thinking about a meeting on Friday, April 12 in the morning. I'm looking in general and like in the manager's department direction. Is that possible for you to provide presence at a meeting on the 12th?
Yeah, in terms of the work that we would need to do from after the board meets to when we go to print, it's really just adding the words recommended or not recommended to these articles. So we should have everything else already set up before then. So meeting anytime that day, that morning would be fine, whether it's at noon or in the morning or whatever works best for the board. I am presenting at the senior center at 9:45 that day, but I could send Tom.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll work that out by a series of emails from Lisa about the logistics of exactly when we meet. Great. Okay, so with that in mind, we could still usefully find out if where generally people are leaning with these 4 zoning articles to make sure we're assigning appropriate people. Are people able and willing to disclose their general tendency on these articles 10, 11, 12, and 13? Maybe, yes. You're not sure?
I do not want to discuss this before the planning board has voted for their recommendation. I'm not expecting anything other than a recommendation. I just think that this is a body that is doing this work, and us stepping in front of that vote is not appropriate.
David? Dean?
I agree 100% with Alyssa.
Well, okay. Well, that's a remarkable moment, and we should celebrate it and roll with it. So, yeah, so since we know we're meeting on the 11th, before the thing is published, we will wait on making recommendations there. We do have tentative assignments. I know that for myself, it's going to be very, very useful for me to understand all of those really well, especially if I'm then rolling from there into, a few days later, going into a, special town meeting and having to, because the special town meeting presumably turns into a pre-meeting about, especially the MBTA overlay district. So it probably pays for all of us to understand that well, but I'm certainly going to be one of those people who's trying to go deep into the details. Alyssa?
Do we need to edit that?
Yeah.
Oh, did we?
So replace me?
Right, that's right. We put you in South Acton.
Not replace me, add me to
Right.
South Acton Village.
Okay, so 23 is going to change to Alyssa.
And then I thought Fran had MBTA.
Yeah.
Oh, you had South Acton because you were on that. Why don't I take MBTA then? Because you were on the working group.
I was, but
I thought
You're
that
just
both
as-
of those were addressed with the working
you're just as
group.
involved,
Yeah.
so
Which
it's
one
up
do
to
you want?
Out of the MBTA or the
Or
South
South Acton
Acton?
Village?
Definitely South Acton.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Not that
I knew you had an opinion.
Yeah. But you were wanting a presentation, so I'm fine with the way it is.
Is
Wait,
the
so I
planning
think we're
direct-
putting Alyssa on MBTA overlay district and Fran on South Acton Village, is that what I heard? I'm fine with that. I think that, especially if Alyssa ends up also being our person at the special meeting, I think there's value. I mean, so Alyssa, what you expressed at this meeting was a really pivotal kind of ambivalence, supporting the process of having these special town meetings, but at the same time, a concern about things that were said about the South Acton Village process. So I think you potentially represent an important middle ground that could be helpful there at that meeting. You know, I mean, we can all speak to things as individuals, but, you know, and it's not like there's going to be a lot. It's like, you know, we get turned to, and we get, you know, a short period of time to say something about our collective thinking about this matter. So that would be the main job. You're not actually representing the article.
So I'm having a moment here where I
Yeah.
am finally remembering that there is a statement made from the stage reflecting the thoughts of the board members.
Yes.
And then the actual article could very well be presented by staff down on the floor.
No, for a citizen petition, the presentation is by the presenter.
Yes, but for the others.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You would present.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, John's got a thought?
To further complicate the discussion, there are also pre-town meeting recordings that we've done the last few years that would likely happen here. There are members of I know there are members of the working group for that project that would want to participate in a presentation, including Kristen and maybe other members of the group. And the planning board members actually moved the article, right, for these. And so this is really just determining which member of the board is the key contact and would participate, whether it's kind of facilitating that group presentation or doing it all. I think that's something that could be determined by each of you, but I do anticipate a group effort for some of those bigger projects.
Yeah,
comment in that Catherine Yusoff, the chair of the EDC, gave a fabulous presentation at the planning board meeting about the South Acton Village district, so she would be great for.
So taking this on means taking on, you know, sort of coordinating the presentation as well. Okay, and potentially the video thing. And you're fine with that, and you're fine with that for South Acton Village? Okay, and I'm fine with that for Assabet River Overlay District and Powder Mill Zoning District. Okay. So we've distributed the 4 zoning articles among four members. That seems very reasonable and fair. And we will defer our actual recommendation on these until our meeting, which is probably on the 12th. And that'll be time, that's time to get if we do agree on a recommendation, that's time to get it printed. David?
Can we directly discuss Article 1 for the special town meeting?
Sure.
You know, I don't think it's necessarily a given. Whoever does the MBTA zoning does that one. I think the issues are different. I would like to do the one at the special town meeting. I mean, if you know, if all of you are agreeable to that. If you're not, that's fine too. But I think they're different.
Yeah, I'm open to having a different person. I think I have I'm trying to think of how to express this. I think it doesn't pay us well to have, no. There's the peculiar politics of speaking back and forth with Jane Moosebrucker, the main petitioner, and Tara, who's been, you know, providing a lot of the energy behind it. One of the reasons I thought of Alyssa doing that is because she has a history of being very balanced, you know, sort of not getting, like, I would concern that I would get caught up in my anger at the process, and I have the same concern for you, that, you know, it could turn into a personal battle rather than introducing the pros and cons to citizens. So that's the thought I have.
So for me, I don't think I would get caught up in the process at town meeting, right? I don't think the process is an issue at town meeting, right? It's the merits of the article. And I think it's frankly helpful to have someone voted in in the way that the board recommended to do that. And, you know, to me, I'm not even sure that the moderator would allow arguments, you know, for, you know, based on the process of how we got to town meeting. You know, at that point, we're there. So,
Yeah, and I think the other thing I'm remembering, of course, is that it's not as a larger role as I was imagining. You're not having a lot of back and forth. You're making a statement from the select board that, you know, encompasses the range of our points of view, and that might be the last of it.
for me, I would certainly offer to the moderator a short presentation. Because, mainly because some of the facts used are not facts, right? And so I would, there are some important points, I think, that need to be expressed and that the public should know about, that are, you know, they're counters to the things said associated with this article.
Alyssa, you had some thoughts about this?
Yeah, I agree with David that the person, me, who voted in the minority is not the best person to give a presentation, but I also agree with you, Jim, that representing the important details is not necessarily the job for David. Because David, I worry that what will be focused on is the wording, and this is something that I remember from the water petition, and I don't remember what year that was, sorry. But to me, that has an effect of dampening citizens' willingness or comfort to redress their government.
Can you say it?
To redress their government. And I really don't want to discourage the citizen petition process. I understand in this particular instance, there are a lot of other issues at play here, but I think that is not a road we should go down. So maybe Dean.
Well, one of the roles I've, you know, been playing as chair is, you know, someone who's sort of bringing together different points of view and synthesizing them and saying them. So I'm certainly willing to do that, but I would want to get, you know, input from all of you, you know, on the 12th about the specific points that you know, want to have in this kind of presentation, if I took it on. So,
That I think sounds good, because I do recall your other addresses. You were very careful to reflect the views of all of the board members when you did.
Okay. So I think that means I'm making the suggestion that I be the person who is assigned to the special town meeting warrant article, but that's with the caveat that I need to make sure to, you know, hear from people so I can reflect, you know, all these different points of view, particularly the, you know, the problems of fact that you're seeing. I'd like to make sure to, you know, get those written down so I can reflect them. Is that okay as a way to proceed? Okay. Okay. So I'll be assigned to that one. But not to the, not at the main town meeting, just at this special town meeting. Okay, good. So I think that means we're ready for a motion to vote recommendations in favor of, let's see, Articles 1 through 9 and 14 and 15 and 17 through the end, 17 through 35. Does anyone want to Oh, hey, it's late enough, I can make the motion. I would move that we vote to recommend Articles 1 through 9, 14 and 15, and 17 through 35.
So moved.
You have to give a concern, I think.
Yeah. Do we think we're going to all be this unanimously in favor of every article?
Of the ones that I've mentioned, I think so. Are you saying?
I'm sorry, maybe I didn't catch the numbers. Are you just doing the consent items?
Consent items plus authorizing long-term lease plus tax increment financing plus the first 9, the financial ones, the budgets up into community preservation program. Not assuming any of the zoning bylaws or the citizens petition.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Could you go through that again? I seem to have missed some point. Are we talking about just voting the recommendations on the consent items right now?
Well, let's start there. I know I have added some extra ones, but let's start with the consent items, 17 through 35, and item 2, hear and accept reports. That's probably a better place to start. So I would change my motion. Since no one seconded it yet, I can change it. So I would propose we vote positive recommendations on 2 and 17 through 35. Oh, no, sorry, yes, 17 through 35, all the consent items.
Second.
Any other discussion? No? All those in favor, please say yes or aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. So we have unanimous recommendations for 17 through 35 and number 2. What about the budget items? Potential budget transfer, we don't even know if that's going to happen. Town operating budget through community preservation program. Are there any concerns on the board about voting recommendations for 4 through 9?
I do have concerns, and
Okay.
I think, why don't we just vote these things individually?
Okay, that's fine too. Let's start with number 4, the town operating budget. Are there any concerns about supporting that one? No? Then I would move that we vote to recommend support item number 4, town operating budget.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you. That's everyone. Number 5 is town capital, public works, public safety, and public celebrations. Are there any concerns about moving that one? No? Then I'd move that we support recommendation for item 5.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye or yes.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Town capital, infrastructure design and construction borrowing, that's item number 6. I would move that we recommend item 6.
Second.
Any discussion on that one? No? All those in favor, please say yes or aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Number 7 is Acton Boxborough Regional School District Assessment. I would move that we recommend number 7.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion on that one before we vote?
I will vote no, but that's it.
Okay, and would you like to say anything about that? Because one of us is going to have to stand up and speak, and it might be helpful for us to understand your thoughts on that.
Well, I think that in the first instance, the school, AB school district budget is double the size of ours, better than double. They have their own people, they have their own process. I'm not really sure why the select board weighs in on this, because we really have essentially no input and no control over the AB school budget. In the second instance, the budget that they will be presenting will be posited on the approval of the override vote, which I frankly do not favor the override vote insofar as the impact on the schools. So I will vote against it.
Okay, so you'd be voting against recommending the Acton Boxborough Regional School District
Yes.
assessment? Okay. That's fine. Why don't we get that recorded? All those in favor of supporting the item 7, please say yes or aye. Yes?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, 4-1. And the, number 8 is the Minuteman Regional School District assessment. I would move that we support the Minuteman Regional School District assessment.
Second?
Any discussion on that? No? All those in favor, please say yes or aye.
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 Okay, great. Yeah, okay, let's move on. Community Preservation Program is number 9. I'd move that we recommend the Community Preservation Program.
Second?
Any discussion? No? All those in favor, please say yes or aye.
Aye.
Great, that's unanimous. Okay, we're going to defer votes on 10 through 13 until after the planning board votes. And now we have items 14 and 15. Authorized long-term lease of 19 and 21 Maple Street.
Can I ask a question about that?
Please.
We have not seen this lease, and we also had asked for more information, which we don't have yet. So I'm a little concerned that we're voting to recommend without having all of the details.
I'm very comfortable voting to defer a recommendation.
Okay, so I move to defer recommendation.
We also have some data from John.
Thank you. Yes, I did meet with the food pantry director last week, and we are preparing a presentation for the 29th, which is, of course, would be too late for the board to put it in the warrant. But I wanted to clarify that we already have authority to lease the property today, which was given by town meeting when the property was acquired. So we could do that now. I think what this article is simply asking, do we have authority to extend a lease for up to 10 years, I believe it says. So for any proponent or any entity, whether it's the food pantry or anyone. So even though this is clearly about the food pantry, we're asking for the authorization regardless of who the tenant is.
I withdraw my motion that hasn't been seconded.
Also, just for clarity, this warrant article is not approving a specific lease, but rather allowing the select board to sign a lease.
So we're not allowed to go over 3 years without specific authority from town meeting, and that's all this is specific authority to go for a longer term lease, and it doesn't have to be for a specific entity. And that's the summary, which again, we will be printing before a decision is made on the lease, is going to make that clear. It probably will mention the food pantry since they're the tenant being discussed, but this authority would be, we're seeking this authority regardless of the tenant.
Hearing the facts so far, I mean, personally, I'm comfortable with the defer recommendation just because the facts are developing. And I don't think people will be astonished to hear we can still vote a recommendation, it just doesn't show up in the warrant. We just show up at town meeting and say, at this date, we agreed to support it. So I wouldn't mind waiting until we knew more.
It has nothing to do with the food pantry, though. So.
Well, the write-up would apparently include the food pantry as a possible person to be leased to. I mean, what if something doesn't work out? Well, we wouldn't want to recommend something that, I don't know, Dean?
So I think the point is that if the negotiations of the food pantry fell through and they moved someplace else, we still need to have the ability to lease the thing out for a long period of time. So I think there has to be a clear separation between the legal authority that we're attempting to obtain and who the tenant might be. So I think that building needs to find a tenant, and I think the only way you can find a tenant is to plan on a long-term lease. Nobody's going to be interested in 3 years. So I think it's really important. And I think it sends a message to people watching this that, you know, if we're somewhat equivocal about this and we're sitting on the fence, I mean, where does that leave the food pantry people if indeed they're the ones who are going to deal with? So I think I don't see any downside to voting to get the authority to do the lease regardless of who the tenant is. And I suspect that in the future, there might be other parcels of town-owned property that we might want to go through the same process on.
You've all convinced me. I'm happy to revert to the motion that we vote to recommend. Who made that motion? Did I make that motion? No.
You
No one made a
usually-
motion.
yeah.
Hey, then I would make a motion to vote to recommend, which one is this? Number 14.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? No? All those in favor, please say yes or aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's everyone. Thank you. Number 15, the tax increment financing with Natural Stonewall Solutions. This would authorize how much detail would this have in it, John? This article, or would we be recommending a particular agreement, or just authorizing us to enter into an agreement?
We're going to have as much detail as possible
There's a
in the article. And it's generally what we've already presented when the board asked that we put this on the warrant a few weeks ago.
Okay.
That process is still being finalized, and it will likely be done before, well, it will be done before town meeting, but I'm not sure if it'll be done before we print.
Okay. Well, given all that, I'd be happy to introduce a motion that we approve, that we recommend number 15.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? No? All those in favor, please say yes or aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Okay. And I think that's all the ones that we want to consider tonight. Great. Thank you, everybody.
Did you not want to consider the citizens petition?
Oh, no, I didn't, because I wanted us to have more time to have a better discussion about it. I'm fine with leaving that until the Friday, the 12th. Yeah. Okay. That was the last of the regular articles on our agenda. Let's talk about consent articles. Now, I would like to say that number 15 has been withdrawn, so we will not be voting for or against number 15. But as for the rest, I'm going to read through them. Say hold if you want to have a further discussion. 13, approve meeting minutes, March 4, 13, and 18, 2024. Approve executive session minutes, March 18, 2024. 16, appoint John Gianetto from associate to full member on the Commission on Disabilities with a term to end on June 30th, 2026. 17, appoint Christopher Brandon as a full member of the Transportation Advisory Committee with a term to end on June 30th, 2027. Approve one-day alcoholic beverage license applications as listed right here in our agenda and in the packet. Approve 19, approve letter of support to Metropolitan Planning Organization for a Great Road Design Pilot Funding Request. And that's it.
I move to approve items 13, 14, and 16 through 19 inclusive.
Great. I will second that. Any other discussion on those? No? All those in favor, please say yes or aye.
Aye.
Yes.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Meeting eval. Let's see, what did I start off with? I'm glad we were able to figure out an extra meeting. This much it took a little time, but it's so much quicker to do it when we're all here in person, so I'm glad we did that. We'll need to schedule a agenda-setting meeting for that meeting, in case there's other things to do there. So I'm going to look over to like Tom or John to like suggest, okay, okay, good. What else? This was a bit challenging. You know, the discussion about the zoning articles and the special town meeting, I thought, I had a hard time sort of separating out my various roles about, you know, having an opinion about the article and trying to bring the board together and trying to figure out who should do it and then finally nominating myself to do it, which was not easy, but I thought it was the right thing to do. But I did feel a little awkwardness around that. So if there's any feedback on how we could have done that differently, you know, we'll be doing this again once a year for a while, so might as well learn how to do it well. Any other particular things? No, I like how we handled the complicated things that didn't have particular decisions yet, like the sewer extension project. I thought we did the right level of going into the details and expressing our opinions without having to, you know, reach a decision which we couldn't reach. Other evaluation comments or notes on things that we need to, you know, deal with at a different date? Alyssa?
I just want to make sure that I understand the assignments for the next meetings. We are preparing comments or arguments to support our position on articles, the zoning, 4 zoning articles, and also the citizens petition for the leaf blower bylaw.
Yeah, you don't actually have to have the actual statement by that date. You want
But to express those,
Yes,
yeah.
and you'll be collecting, we'll all be collecting information from each other about our points of view on that, so that
Right.
it can be reflected in a statement, yeah.
And does that also include comments for the special town meeting, or have we all completed those expressions of viewpoints tonight?
I'll bet you we could briefly cover that again. I would appreciate that. Because you know, David mentioned certain things he wanted to make sure got said that were errors of fact, and I don't know what those are, so.
Okay.
I'd like to talk about that.
And then the other assignment is to get comments on the goals as part of the town manager's performance review to Mary Ann.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I'll put in the packet and be prepared to discuss the gas leaf blower bylaw. Okay. Other comments about how things went or things we could learn from? David?
No comments there. I thought everything went fine. Just a request that, I wonder if Lisa could send us out this sheet updated with the recommendations and the person assigned, just to make sure my little scribbles match what everybody else's little scribbles are. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Anything else? Maybe there's a motion about.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. And there's no discussion of that one. All those in favor, please say yes or aye.
Yes. Aye.
Great. That's it. We're done.